That's a really good thing to do, and you should do it periodically. On your iOS devices, rather than just a restart, I highly recommend doing what's called a hard reset. And a hard reset, I'll explain, and I'm sure Al will have it linked in a second here. Hang on, I'm just making sure we're live, and we are live. That's good. Okay. So a hard reset on your iOS device, generally speaking, is you take the volume on the left hand. Oh, excuse me, hiccups. On the left side, you have a volume up and a volume down button below that one little switch you have on there. So to hard reset your phone, you quickly and firmly press and release the volume up, then immediately go down and press and release, quickly release the volume down button. And then you go over on the other side and press and hold that sleep wake, or some people call it the power button. Hold it, and a screen will pop up and say slide to power off. Don't do that. Continue holding it until you see the Apple logo. And that just gets anything rogue that was going on, it'll reset it and does all that. So that's an important thing. And that I do it periodically. I do it at least every 2 weeks, or if things are acting weird. So anyway, Pete, did you put your hand down? Do you still have a question there, Mr. McDonough?
Yes, I have about the iPhone.
Okay, go for it.
Um, I'm wondering, since it's good to do a hard reset like you just described, I could do that every morning. Is there anything wrong with that? And I have two more follow-ups.
Yeah, well, no, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a little bit of a hassle, but it's probably a little bit more than you need. So I say every 2 weeks. I always do it always right after if I get a software update. But if things are acting weird, I will do it as often as needed. But I think it's one of those things. It's probably a bit overkill doing it every other day, but you're doing no harm. You're going to wear out your fingers, and that's about it. And at 93, man, you've only got so many presses left, you know?
Yeah, but I don't mind doing that at all. You make it sound difficult. It's so easy for me to.
Yeah, it's no problem doing it a lot, but I just tell people, because I want people to do it often enough, so I say every 2 weeks. But if things are acting weird, do it. Because sometimes an application will go weird or rogue, and I say that bits get scrambled is the way I describe it, or what I call it is sometimes there's what's called cruft, which is not a technical term, but it just means it kind of gets clogged up, and that really helps that. So yeah, Pete, no problem doing it. But
Okay,
don't
second one is
don't wake up every morning saying, "Oh man, I haven't done that yet."
I've been doing it though.
Yeah, it's no problem.
Second question is, thank you. Second question is, oh boy. Um, Oh, so sometimes during the day when I'm hooked to Wi-Fi because of the convenience, I'm on the iPhone a lot. So say it's at 60% or 55%, and all of a sudden I realize I should be at my dentist office or something like that. How much in situations like that during the week, how many times a day should I recharge my iPhone? I don't want to get it
So
low.
yeah, so well, good question. So uh, here's the deal. An iPhone is a mission critical device to us. Our computer and our iPad are less mission critical. And the way I point this out is look at the recent Palisades fire. I remember when they had the Paradise fire here, and I personally interacted with two individuals that had 8 minutes to evacuate their house. And they were lucky. Well, one guy didn't even grab his phone. He wasn't as addicted to his phone as we are because he was on an Android. But anyway, um, it. I know of a guy that it was a good friend of mine's brother who they evacuated in 8 minutes, and yeah, he got his phone, but he didn't get his charger. And so, if it's a case like that, if you think about how mission critical our phone is, you always want to have a good state of charge. The downside is if you're charging your phone to 100% all the time, your battery will degrade faster. Now, when I say degrade faster, it's not a huge amount, but it is something that if you're looking to get the longest amount of time out of your phone battery, you don't charge it to 100% all the time. And there's now settings in there that you can set it down to a lower amount. Oh, Charles, we don't want to share your screen. Hang on here. Let's stop that share. There we go. So the there is an opportunity now in the phone to charge it to 80 or 90%. And by charging it only to 80 or 90%, you will increase the life of the battery, but it's an incremental amount. And what you need to weigh that is, hey, if I'm only charging it to 80%, am I going to have enough battery life to get through the day if I can't have a charger? Now, for my case, I actually get a new phone every year because I'm on the Apple upgrade program. So realistically, if my battery life is degraded, it's not a huge deal to me. But if you keep your phone for 3 years, battery degradation could be an issue, but it's only $70 to replace your battery if you need a new battery in it. So again, I think this is all a balancing act. And my feeling is, I think you can be more worried, more judicious on your Mac and more judicious on your iPad. But the the dire essence and need for the iPhone, to me, overweighs, and the fact that you may get somewhere where you can't charge it right away, and we depend on it so much. So I think you have to weigh all this, and it's your own decision. And I think it's a wonderful question, and I think it does it. My phone, like right now, my phone, I'm sitting at my computer. I have a easel type wireless stand where my phone is sitting in it all the time. My phone is always on the charger at night. And as soon as I get in my car, I put it on a MagSafe mount right next to the display in my car, and it's always charging. But this year, I just started doing it where I am only charging my phone to 80%. Now, when I go skiing or if I'm going to go out and take photos and do things like that, I will ramp it back up to 100% so that I have a full amount of battery when I need it. But the other thing is, and I'm going to talk a little about travel today too, in addition to going in about Safari, I also have an external battery that I take with me anytime I'm going out and shooting photos all day or doing anything else. And so therefore, it's big enough to charge my phone completely twice. And it's magnetic and sticks to the back of the phone. And so, it's got to have all those tools, and those things are really, really important.
Thank
So, Pete, I
and
hope
that
that
makes
answers it for you. And I wouldn't be afraid. And you said, I remember you right when you logged on, you said you found where to go to 90%. 90% is a real good one. And
by
remember
accident.
though, yeah, well, you found it though. And the idea is that batteries will degrade. So the batteries, there's two ways that your batteries degrade. All lithium ion batteries degrade in two ways. One is by the calendar. In other words, it's just how old it is, whether you're charging it the perfect way or not even charging it. Or, by the way, if you have lithium ion batteries and you want to store them for a length of time, I believe 60% is what they say the optimum charge is to let it just sit. Lithium ion batteries do not like being at 100%, and they don't like being below 20%. So that's just something to think about. But my feeling is it's a tool, it's going to get depleted. You should use it as your use case demands that it should be used. And I think always default to make sure you've got enough charge to get through stuff, because not only from a safety factor, from an information factor and everything else, the iPhone itself has become real mission critical.
Thank you
So,
very much. A tag on what about in the car? It charges so slowly in the car. Is there a fast charger for cars?
well, yeah, there are faster chargers for the car. Now, are you using a wire or are you
Just a
using,
wire.
um, okay,
It's so
so
slow.
yeah, so here's the deal. So, both home chargers and the car chargers. So first of all, most of the new phones since the iPhone 15 are using USB-C. And generally speaking, USB-C. Now, many of us have a USB-A, the old style rectangular adapter. Well, USB-A is what that is, or it would be USB up to what's called USB 3, only had a certain power. USB-C is designed to carry more power, and more power just means it charges it faster. But like everything, you're only as good as your weakest link. So when you use the cigarette, we'll call it the cigarette lighter adapter because I'm an old guy and that's how I think of it. The 12-volt adapter, the little plug-in thing that's the size of your thumb that goes into that socket in your car. Your car puts out 12 volts or more, but that adapter puts out what's called amperage. And the least acceptable amount of amperage is 1 amp. And let's put this back in something you might be able to visualize easier. When when adapters used to come with the iPhone, there was a little square that was about 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch, a cube. I mean, it was a little smaller than that. That's what you got with your iPhone. And those were 1 amp. They might have been 1.2. But an iPad came with one that was almost 2 inches by 2 inches by 1 inch. Okay. So it's 4 times the size. And it would put out 2 to 2.2 amps because an iPad, and so consequently, if you had an iPad, the iPhone charger would get some energy to the iPad, but if you were using the iPad, it wasn't enough energy to both charge it and use it. So, in other words, if you use that little 1 amp iPhone charger on an iPad, it would kind of maintain what it is. And when it went to sleep, it might charge it up because it only had 1 amp. But if you use the iPad charger that was 2 amp, it would definitely fill the iPad, not fast, but while you're using it, because it uses more energy because the screen's bigger. Consequently, if you charged your iPhone with the iPad charger, it will charge your iPhone twice as fast with no damage at all. It's based on amps and it can handle it. So that's why I always recommend a company like Anker with their external devices, and you want to see how much each one does. Pete, the same applies in the charger in the car. If it's only a 1 amp charger, it's going to charge your phone slow because you said you were going through a cable. Now, if you find one that has 2 amps, and you got to look on them really close and you look for output. USB will always be 5V or 5 volts output, but then you want to look at amperage and you want to see 2 or above on amperage, and it won't degrade your battery because it's charging too fast or anything else like that. So look for that. And if you use the MagSafe wireless charging, the newest phone, the 16, now is the second generation of that. So it will charge faster if you get, and it's called a G, it's the protocol called G, and I believe it's QI if I'm not mistaken. And they have a second generation that puts out more amperage as a wireless charger. The other one works pretty well, but what happens is the phones themselves can accept a faster charge and they are a little more demanding in that. Now, I threw a lot out to you there. Before we go on to other questions, please let's answer these questions because charging's critical. And I'm so glad Pete brought it up because I take it for granted and I make sure when I buy my travel devices, I look for that. In fact, if I'm looking at anything, the first thing I look for is what's the amperage. Now, oh, that being said, always use good cables and always buy good chargers because if you think about it, many of us charge it on a nightstand right next to where we sleep. And believe me, fire's not a good thing. Okay. Apple makes very good products and high quality lithium ion batteries. So there is virtually never fires because of that. But cables can get worn, or cables may not have a UL listing and stuff, and chargers can get warm, and that can be a problem. So Anchor is a brand I really trust. You can get it on Amazon. You don't have to, and Belkin's another good one. But you spend a little bit more, but your safety's worth it. And just make sure you get the amperage. And I really believe in that. And cable wise, Amazon has basics. You don't have to get Anchor for a cable. A cable is less likely to be an issue. And another thing I do, for instance, I sit in bed or on a couch with my iPad mini plugged in all the time, and I get at least a 6 foot cable. So I'm not having to be tethered. I can go to one end or the other. And a little extra cable doesn't hurt except when you trip over it.
Thank you, Ken.
So, yeah, Pete, did that do it for you?
Yes, sure did. Thank you very
Good.
much.
All right. So any other questions on charging and cables before we move on? Great question. Go ahead, Bev. You got a tough follow-up here on that.
Well, this is related. I got Georgiana was liberating things from her godmother, and I got an Amazon. Let me see, yeah, Amazon Dot, but it just came that amount, and it has the little. So this, right on charging. So I had a
Right.
cable to that fits with the oh gosh, micro
And
whatever.
is that a round adapter on it on the one end?
Ground.
No, what you're holding up on that cable, I saw the USB end. What's the other end like?
What do they call the micro?
Oh, that's called a micro USB. So it's basically four-sided with angles on it. That's an old school type connector.
Yeah. And I
which
had
is
one. I found one, but it didn't come. And then with the power adapter, I have just a standard cube. Let's see.
right. No, you got it.
Okay, now some of the ones I've had in the past, they have like they specify how many volts, how many amps, it's almost like they're regulating what going through. Can I just use any sort of USB to wall plug?
Yeah. So again, let's talk about that. So the one adapter, the one end is a USB A, and then there's a proprietary one. Well, no, excuse me. It's a micro USB, which is a weird angled one. I say it looks like a house that's been flattened. It's
we could
angled,
consult
it's
Al's
angled
Brown.
on two sides and then down. Well, micro USB doesn't usually carry too much of a load. And so whether your charger for the wall, the adapter, so to speak, whether it's strong enough, you'll know. If it powers it, fine. And again, those little echo dots don't require a lot of amperage, so you're probably okay on that. And in fact, that would be a good location to use any of your sitting around lowest amperage ones if it works.
Okay,
But for
'cause I was
charging your
concerned about.
device, so
Yeah.
it's running the dot and it's not charging the battery in the dot, it's running it live. So that should be fine. I think back then they were pretty much all 1 amps, but you can always look on your device and you use the magnification or the magnification app on your phone or triple click the side and read on it because it's always really small lettering. They're always 5 volts. So everything USB is 5 volts. Okay. for instance, in your car puts out around 12, but that little cigarette lighter adapter thing is changing it from 12 volts DC down to 5 volts DC. And then the strength of which it can power things is the amperage at the end. And for that dot, 1 is probably fine. But again, for charging our stuff, we want to look for something that's 2 or above.
Viv, I
Okay.
posted a chart in the chat. It's a guide for computer connectors and ports.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I got one of those.
y-
Yeah.
That might be something you might want to archive for future reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, the Google search of it works. I mean, it just works well. Hang on here.
Yeah, I was just concerned about blowing it out or something. And
No, you won't, because you can't over amp it, to be honest.
okay.
So, and it's always 5 volts. And believe me, if it's USB, it's good. Now, in the newest thing, USB-C, I can use USB-C. Well, first of all, USB-C charge is the power adapter for my my T-Mobile internet. It's also USB-C can be used to charge a MacBook Pro, and it can be used to, charge my AirPods case. So USB-C has the capability to go up to 100, I believe 160 watts, which is really powerful. But it won't overcharge the other stuff. In other words, it's very versatile in that regard. And on USB-C, you want to have so the other thing that comes into play with especially USB-C, some cables are essentially charge only, they just pass power, and some pass data. So for instance, if you're using it on your MacBook Pro and you want to, I had one instance where I was trying to display my phone for doing a presentation, and the USB-C cable I had didn't pass data. So it would charge my phone, but it wouldn't do the it wouldn't pass the data. It wouldn't even show up. So, and that's rare. The other thing is, now that we're talking about USB-C, which is the new small adapters, and by the way, the cables are almost always the same. They're both a male end on both ends. Apple has a thing called Thunderbolt, and we're up to Thunderbolt 5 has just come out. But Thunderbolt is a USB-C connector, but it can transfer more power and it can transfer data at a higher speed, which comes into play when you're talking about external hard drives and things like that. But for charging and everything, you only need Thunderbolt if you have a drive that supports Thunderbolt and you're trying to get some really high speed data access.
Yeah, I
So
was able to see
before we
this
move
is-
on to Keith, go ahead,
Yeah, it's
Beth.
5 volts, 1 amp on this, so that's good. And I just have
Yeah, and
had
if that will run it, you'll be just fine. You'll know if it doesn't run it, it means it doesn't have enough juice. But I think it will, because as I remember, those things were pretty much a 1 amp thing from Amazon. The big one, the big tower one, may not be enough.
very good. Thank you.
Yeah, and you got to remember it's powering a speaker, so the bigger the speaker, the more power it needs. All right, great questions. All right, Keith, go right ahead. Unmute yourself.
Okay. I recently updated my Apple computer to Sequoia, and I have a couple of issues or problems that they're not critical, but they're annoying. I wonder how to get rid of them. The first one is,
First of all, did your studio display get updated?
does your
Remember,
studio?
there was an issue with it was going to update the firmware on your studio display.
Yes, I think it did. Yes.
Okay,
I'm not
good.
sure.
Yeah, well, if you don't see it anymore, it probably did.
Um, my Time Machine backup, I get a pop-up window that says, "You have not backed up this backup drive in 489 days or something like that. This is a backup drive that used to back up my other older computer, and I keep it in a safety deposit box strictly as an archive. It's the cartridge of the hard drive is full. I don't want to use it anymore. I'm just keeping it. But for some reason or other, the computer thinks I still have it and it thinks I still back it up, and I can't get rid of that icon for that
So,
particular drive.
okay, so do you have a second Time Machine drive hooked up to your machine currently?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the conundrum, and then we'll go on because some people, Keith was doing a thing where I always recommended 2 Time Machine backups, and you keep one off site. So when Time Machine is using 2 backup hard drives, it, even though the one's working, it's saying, oh, well, one of these, and it doesn't say which one. I mean, it can be programmed really easily, but it says, oh, you haven't backed up in forever. And if you go up to the Time Machine logo up on the menu bar, it says, yeah, it backed up at 10 o'clock last night. And you go, what the heck? Well, it's referencing the other one that's in there. Now, if you're no longer doing that one and doing the swap mix and everything, you can actually go into, in fact, let me pull it, let me share my screen. And what you do is, hang on. Let me get the cursor up. So if I go up to my Time Machine preferences up here, see it says I backed up yesterday at 4:49 p.m. And when I open up Time Machine, I have a few different ones here, and yeah, that one's disconnected, but it backed up yesterday. Oh, in fact, I just disconnected it to plug my mic in. So if that one is no longer, Keith, that you're never going to use it again, you would highlight it and then hit the minus sign.
Ah,
And then that will no longer be in the mix. Now, if you're going to continue to do one off site, you'll just have to put up with that little sign because it means one of your time machines hasn't done it.
okay. I
And
just
again,
did
I'll show
that
you guys how to get there. If you go up here to the top and you see the little counterclockwise clock, you click on that. And first of all, it says it backed up yesterday at this time. And then I go down here and click Open Time Machine Settings or Preferences, depending on what it is. It'll show me this one backed up today at 8:26, and this one was yesterday. So let's say this other one stayed unplugged for 2 weeks. It'll say you haven't backed up in 14 days, but I immediately go up there and say, no, I backed up at 8:26. Oh, wait, that's old. That's not an old one. That one, oh, that's my network one. So that one I only do periodically. But this one was backed up recently. So,
no, I
all
just did that.
right.
I just did that. I didn't notice that little plus and minus sign down before. I clicked the minus sign and it went away. The icon went away. So I'm happy.
Yep. Yeah.
So
And now you'll not get that little pesky reminder.
good.
Hey, Ken.
So
Yeah.
I have a second question. You want me to do this now or wait?
Okay, hang on. Al's got a comment on that. Go for
No,
it, Al.
no, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'll follow up after this gentleman.
Okay, go ahead, Keith.
So my second question is, when I used to visit with my other older operating system, when I used to visit a website, someplace I went to frequently, or a store to buy things or whatever it is, I sign in and I use my finger on the little finger identification thing on the keyboard to sign in, and the computer would remember me till the next time. And so when I went to sign into that same place again 2 days later, it knew who I was, and I immediately got connected. Now with this new operating system, when I go into a site, I get a window pop up. I click on my email address, but my fingerprint doesn't work anymore. And it wants me to enter a
Oh, well, wait.
password.
Hold on. Does it allow you to try use your fingerprint and your fingerprint doesn't work, or it's not an option?
It's not an option.
Okay.
Is there a
On
way I
any website or just some?
say again?
Does that happen on everyone or just some of them?
On all of them.
Okay. I would go into your system settings and add your fingerprint again. In fact, if we go up here, we'll go into mine and go to system settings, and we'll go down to touch ID and password. And you want to make sure these are on first of all. Oh, and I want that. I'm glad we went here. I can now use my Apple Watch to do it, and my fingerprint didn't take it. That's interesting. So you want to make sure these are all on. And Keith, if you have to add your fingerprint one more time, don't delete your old fingerprint and do it. And that might awaken it. But
My
it shouldn't.
fingerprint is on there twice already.
Okay, and are all these blue?
Are they what?
Are they all blue?
No, they're black.
Well, that depends on what you have setting. When you say black, is the white button on the left or the right?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what
Are
you're
you
saying.
seeing my screen?
Am I seeing your screen?
Do you
No.
see my screen? You don't see my screen?
Okay, now I think I see.
This is my screen. You see me moving this? Do you see me moving this around and making everybody dizzy?
No, I don't see you moving anything around.
Well, you need to adjust your Zoom window. So tell me this. You're in Touch ID and Password is the name on the top of your window, correct?
Well, I just closed it because I was looking for yours. I'll open it again.
Nope. Yeah, you shouldn't.
Touch ID and password.
Okay, you're in Touch ID and Password, right?
Yes,
Now, the first one says use Touch ID to unlock your Mac, correct?
correct.
And you see a white dot in an oval, a right circle
Yes.
in an oval.
Yes,
Is that white circle to the left or to the right in the
to
oval?
the right.
Okay, so my recommendation would be you could go ahead and turn those off and then turn them back on would be the only thing. And have you
Okay.
restarted recently?
No, but I was going to do that
Oh,
today
that's
sometime.
well, when's the last time you restarted?
Probably a month ago.
Okay. Ken always says if something's weird, restart,
Okay.
and always restart at least every 2 weeks. I've been saying that for a decade.
Okay. Well,
So, and
probably a
take
month
heed
ago that
and
I was doing it.
don't do anything until you do a restart, and 95% of the time it'll fix stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
don't
right.
even mess with anything until you do a restart.
Okay. Thank
Obviously
you.
not during the class. So
Okay.
that's the thing for everybody. If something's acting weird on an iOS device, do a hard reset. If it's a Mac, do a restart, but always do it, all of those, at least every 2 weeks. It just cleans things up. Stuff gets scrambled. So
Or
I
get the
hope that
Bob White
fixes I
habit.
hope that fixes it for you and you can report back that wow, it worked. I always tell people, I get a lot of calls for support when I'm driving along and people will say this or something, and so on the phone I say, "All right, go ahead and restart your computer, and if that doesn't work, call me back." I am still waiting for 95% of those callbacks because it worked.
Or adopt the Bob White habit.
Yeah?
I always start the week with a restart. Monday morning,
Yep.
first thing I do is restart.
And I'm going to tell you while I have my screen up, because we're going to talk about Safari later today, is because I have usually tons of tabs open. So the problem most people don't restart is because they've got all these tabs and windows in Safari that they don't want to lose. Well, when you restart Safari, you'll have a clean slate. So that's sometimes a good thing, but you can always go up to history and say, reopen all windows from last session. And everything, if you had stuff in the dock, whatever else you had, would come up. So that's first Safari tip of the day. Good question. Barbara, go ahead.
So I have two questions actually. The first one is very timely because I needed to do a hard restart on my watch because it updated, and then when my alarm on my phone would go off, it wouldn't come through on my watch. But when I followed the instructions, I would get the message, SOS, and I'd have to cancel that and then go back and hold down both the crown and the button. And it looked like I was supposed to get three messages, the SOS, and then also, shut down or start or something. Anyway, is there a way to avoid activating that SOS message so it doesn't accidentally go through when I'm trying to do a hard reset on my watch?
If you press them, I'm just doing it right now. If you press them both at the same time, press and hold both of them, your screen after a few seconds will go completely dark, and keep holding them until you see the Apple logo.
Okay. While I'm doing that, I have another question, which is with the newest operating system on the phone, and I've got a 12, so it's not the newest, but it's the newest on mine. But now they have got mail set up, so it's decided how it wants to categorize my mail, and I
Yeah,
don't
and
know
it
how it
says
does that.
primary at the top
Yeah,
on the left,
I
right?
don't like that. Is there a
So,
way to
well,
deselect
all
it?
you do is tap where it says primary in blue, and all of a
Yes.
sudden it'll say inbox or all inboxes.
Ah, super. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I agree. So again, the new system is this look, it's trying to help us, and it's using AI to kind of say, oh, what's important. But all you do is if it says primary, it's blue. If you tap it, it will then switch to either inbox or all inboxes. And on iOS devices, I always have it so it's all inboxes.
Okay, and if I did want to select just one particular
Then you
email
still
because
go back
it's,
the old way you do to go to regular inboxes, and it will just display that inbox.
and how do I do that? Mine now says all mail. But if I wanted to just go to my Gmail because that's where I want to send a message, an email from, is there a way to do that?
Okay. Well, doesn't it say mailboxes in the upper left corner? Up
Yes, it
in
does.
blue?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, you
Okay,
tap on mailboxes
got
and
it.
that's still there. It's the exact same way it used to be.
Okay, great. Thank you
In
very
the
much.
upper left corner in blue, that gets you to I call that the table of contents.
Okay, super. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Great questions. All right, anybody else?
Ben,
Yep, go ahead, Charles.
I'm having trouble with with Zoom. When I get the email announcing MacNexus meeting, when I press when I try to use the code, nothing happens. I think most times when it's working, it's in a color, and it's with me, it's always in black. Any thoughts?
Are you using, when you click the link, nothing happens?
Nothing happens. In fact, the arrow, when I put it over the code, the arrow just switches back.
Let me look real quick. Hang on.
I always test those before I send.
What you
Yeah,
say,
no, I'm
Bob?
thinking it might be something with him. So,
But it's the same link. Same meeting every month, same link.
Yeah, the way I do, I go to MacNexus and I press, I get on that. I go to the website and get on that way.
Yeah,
yeah, and it works there.
which is why I put it there as a
Thank you.
backup for people.
I also
So,
post, go ahead.
go ahead.
If you get the email blast, go to the very end. I also post a link right there. If you read those email blasts that Bob White sends out that I create,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
So Charles, are you using Apple Mail, the application, to get your mail?
Yahoo.
You're not. Yeah, but are you using Yahoo Mail or are you using Apple's mail program?
Yahoo.
You're using the Yahoo Mail program?
Yes.
Well, you got to get rid of Yahoo first because it's broken. It's absolutely broken. I would be very worried. Well, first of all these people are worried about snooping. I mean, it's the most hacked email address there is, whether you're SBC Global, ATT.net, or Yahoo. And secondly, you get the most amount of spam, and that email service will cease to exist. Mark my words, within the next year, because because it's so broken. For this free email service, they're spending a ton of money on supporting all the problems they're having to have people do tech support. And it is, I would be so worried if I had any of my important things on a Yahoo email address for many reasons.
Okay, help me
And
here,
believe
Ken.
me,
I've had it. I what do I do with all the many people that have my Yahoo address if I
you
shoot mail?
immediately, and I've been saying this for 4 years, Charles, you immediately use a different email address, whether it be Gmail or Apple's iCloud email, and you need to start transitioning. Let all the spam people that's sending you spam to your Yahoo, but go into your bank, your financial institutions, your friends and family, and get them using an alternate email address, because at some point in the near future, Yahoo's going to say, we're closing down in 30 days. We're sorry. They're not sorry, but they're losing too much money. They're now owned by a venture capitalist. The problem with Yahoo is they were acquired, so they were always kind of a standalone, and they made their money by people seeing the ads when you went to Yahoo Mail on their website. That was their business model, and then they started losing money, so they cut back on support, and then they have a really bad design, so then because of the bad design they have to do more support, so they got purchased by Verizon, and Verizon bought them, and bought AOL too, but they bought these after they were already bad, and it's so stupid. It was one of the worst business decisions anybody could make. And the weird thing is, ATT, PacBell.net, and SBCGlobal.net all used Yahoo and continued to. So how foolish is it for AT&T to have Verizon using people, be the one where people go check their email? So Verizon realized how bad Yahoo was, and they sold it to a private equity group. Well, private equity groups don't have any legacy or anything. When they purchase something, they're either going to try and have it make money or they'll shut it down. And that's where it stands at this point, and has been for about a year. And I'll give you an example. I have a longtime client. Actually, it's a couple, a husband and wife, who 30, 40 years ago, I used to teach skiing for them. They had a private ski school in Sacramento. And they have had SBCglobal.net forever. Finally, they got a new iMac. Luckily, all the rest of their devices still worked on SBC Global, but it took me 5 hours over 2 different days with SBC Global Yahoo support to try get it to work on their new computer, and it wouldn't work. And trust me, if I'm having, even though I was talking to someone in the Philippines or something else, it's still costing that company money to provide this 5 hours of tech support. And it didn't work. Well, on a good note, we had to redo one of their computers on it, and it actually worked. It's back to kind of working, but trust me, you don't want to have anything that's important in your life tied to a Yahoo account. I've been saying that for 4 years. Now, it's not just me. The Apple user group up here that we have 1,400 members at wasn't me, but as a group, because it was taking so much tech support time, we are no longer supporting any questions or problems with an SBC Global, an AT&T.net, a PacBell.net, or a Yahoo account because it's broken and it's terrible. So what you do is your account will still exist for as long as Yahoo will exist, but make sure any important interactions you have with anybody is not done through there because it's going to go away, or it may still be there, but you won't be able to access it because it's just plain broken. And it's a rant, yes, but I mean, it's a huge deal. And so I know you have a Gmail account, and I've been after you to use that for a long time, and you need to use it. And then because what happens is you're going to have to go to your bank, your Apple ID probably, you're going to have to go to all these accounts, and you go in and change your email. So let's take worst case scenario. In 3 months, Yahoo sends an email out to SBC Global, to att.net, to pacbell.net, and says we're shutting things down in 30 days. What that means is you have to scramble and go to the 100 or more accounts that your old Yahoo email address is at and go in and change that email address while Yahoo still works, because once Yahoo stops working and you try go to your bank and change your email address, they're going to send a confirmation email to your Yahoo address, and your Yahoo address doesn't exist anymore. And Charles, this isn't about you. It's for me. People don't believe me when I start talking about this. And I just had somebody here at Sun City that came in and we said, look, for 4 years, we've been telling you to change that email address. Please, I don't want to have that phone call that says, I don't know what to do. I'm locked out of all my financial accounts. That's a big deal, you guys. As we get more and more entrenched into these things, it's a
And
huge
should I change to Gmail or Safari Mail?
Well, there's no Safari Mail.
Oh, okay.
There's Apple iCloud Mail.
Yeah.
Or
Should I change to
Gmail.
Gmail or iCloud Mail?
Yeah, and that's your own choice. I frankly think Gmail is great, but remember, with Gmail, you're getting it for free. They're not going to go away, but they snoop a little bit. Well, I know that, and I'm just okay with that. If you want super secure, use iCloud.com. If you don't have an Apple iCloud account, you should, and you can use that. But I find that Apple's iCloud does some spam filtering that I don't like and don't have control with, where with Gmail, I have more control over the spam filtering. I absolutely love Gmail, and I accept the fact that they are, quote, kind of snooping into my email. I don't care. If I'm sending something that I want to be super secure, I either send it by blue iMessage text, because if you're sending an iMessage that's a blue text, it's completely encrypted end to end. Or if I want to make sure it's more secure, I use Apple. Now, there are secure mail systems out there like Proton Mail and things like that are completely encrypted, but both ends have to be encrypted. I look at this that, look, all my information is out there in one form or another. The cat's out of the bag. And, I'm the cat chasing my tail while I'm out of the bag if I think I can keep my stuff secret and secure. So, Charles, that's not on you. I know how important email is to you because you operate your housing, your investment business off of it and stuff. I would be scared to death if I had anything that was important to me involved with Yahoo.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying. You know, I'm also 93 years old and I have a hard head, but I'm going to start changing today. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate, yes. Hoorah! We've got one. So, but Charles, I thank you for bringing it up. And again, this is not directed at you. It's directed at everyone because there's a lot of, and on the other hand, let's take this one step further. A lot of you are on Xfinity or Comcast or AT&T or Wave, Astound, whatever. Don't use an email address that is affiliated with your internet provider because the internet providers are changing dramatically. And if you leave Xfinity, they don't have to keep giving you email when you're no longer a customer. So become agnostic to that. And Gmail or iCloud are completely agnostic. The other thing is when you send them an email, let's say you have like uh, Barb was talking about, or Bev was talking about Astound or somebody or Randy. Astound is, they'll give you email. Astound is the old Wave. So they're an ISP. They're up here. Randy lives in Rockland. I live in Lincoln. It's a provider up here. So if you had their email service and you send them an email saying, you know what, I need to negotiate a better rate, and if you don't do it better, I'm going to leave. And they see it comes from an astound.com email address. They sit there in their seat and they go, oh yeah, this person's going to leave. Yeah, right. They've got their email with us. So remember, you want to be a free agent. It's just like people are just like players in baseball getting higher salaries when they become a free agent. You want to be portable and not affiliated with your internet provider for a host of reasons. And I think that's important. So it's a great thing that's brought up. And we got good questions on it coming up. So I'll get off my soapbox. And
Before
we
you leave,
converted
tell us-
one. I feel like I'm doing what is it? It's like the tent churches, out in the tents, and we've converted one. Okay, so
Tent revival.
yeah, revival. That's what I was looking for. Thanks.
Thank you.
Barbara, go ahead with your question.
Preaching the
and then
gospel.
Terry. What Al?
Preaching the gospel.
Yeah, there you go.
You
Go ahead,
forgot to
Barbara.
mention the worst one of all, SBC Global.
No, I did. I said SBCglobal.net
Did
was
you?
the one that's the one I spent 5 hours with the people on, and it
Ah.
is used by Yahoo.
Believe it or
It-
not, we
it's-
still have several members using that.
Yep. And good luck to them. I do have to say it improved a little bit, but I still
Luckily, we have a guy that's pretty expert in helping them. Smithson is really good at helping people with the SBC problems.
and see that's the thing though. Why did he have to become good at it?
A lot of practice.
Yeah. Go who did I just say?
This is Barbara.
I unkicked it. It was Barbara. Go ahead.
Yeah. This is actually, I'd love to have questions that are timely to whatever somebody else is talking about. You were just mentioning that Charles uses his email and he's got investment stuff. With things like, when you have emails that relate to financial things, and so security is an issue. It's not just, communication with your friends and who cares if they, read it. Are there any other secure services? My brother talks about Brave, but he's not the most reliable source of information.
Brave is a browser.
It's a browser, okay.
Yes,
Is
and
it
I
more
recommend
secure
Brave.
than-
I recommend Brave as an alternative to Chrome because Chrome is terrible. It uses tremendous. It's not secure. It uses a tremendous amount of resources on your computer. So Brave is a good alternative. Another really good one. Well, there's two other ones. DuckDuckGo is really good. It actually has a browser now. And the other one is Firefox. Firefox has been quite good. Safari is the best browser, but there's some lazy web designers out there that don't do a good job making it be for Safari. Safari you should use. Most safe, most secure. Firefox is a good alternative, but if you have to have one, sometimes I forget. I went to some website and it just wasn't working in Safari, and I do not have Chrome. I have Chrome on my iOS device because I sometimes need it, but on my Mac I will not have Chrome, and I use the Brave browser. But again, that's a browser, just like
Okay,
Safari's a browser.
okay.
So
Well, what about,
Proton Mail, and there's some others out there that are encrypted. But remember, if it's encrypted, the person on the other end has to have encryption too. And so,
yeah. I just sort of, I'm easy because of, as you say, Gmail snooping, putting financial stuff in emails to people on my Gmail account, but you know, that's what they use, but I'm
no,
not
no,
comfortable
it's
with
not
it.
people snooping. Gmail is what they do is it anonymously, okay, let's say you send an email like we talked about earlier, this snooping kind of thing. So if you send an email to somebody and say, "Oh, I just read about this new LG refrigerator. What do you think about it?" Well, it's not a person, but the same bots that go over the internet and look at stuff, they say, "Oh, she said LG refrigerator." So if you use Gmail in a browser, you're going to get ads for LG refrigerators.
Right,
On
right,
the other hand, if you use the Apple Mail program, you won't, because you don't see ads.
okay.
So, and the way Gmail makes their money is by ads. And so they
Mhm.
show these ads if you go to the website. So just don't go to the website, go
Right.
do your Gmail inside the Apple Mail app.
So what about if you're emailing, say, your broker or something like that? Does it pick up stuff
I
like
would
that?
never email a broker. If I have to do something like that, I'll split it into two emails. But and what you would do in that case, I would maybe give them a little bit of information. Well, I mean, you're not passing, unless it's a social security number or something like that. It doesn't really matter. I mean, you're not going to transmit your account number to your broker because ostensibly he already has that. But in
Yeah,
a case like that, I would send partial of a number in an email, and I would text them the other part of that number.
okay. Well, I
There's
have a
no way they're
related,
going to get both of those.
all right, I have a related question. My accountant will send me draft tax returns, which has all my tax info in there. And I've never been that thrilled about it being on email, but that's the only alternative I have. How
Is
secure
it a
is that?
PDF? Is it a PDF?
I think it is.
If it's a PDF, many times they can attach a serial number to it, and you can even do that in preview
Okay,
and have a serial number, not a serial. I'm sorry,
the
a
password.
password or passcode.
Okay. I think she usually does
Again,
that.
the
Yeah.
only really secure way is through encrypted email when it's encrypted on both ends, and if both people have Apple Mail, it's encrypted.
Okay.
They're sending, if you use Apple Mail to send it both ways, they have it, you have it. But the other
Okay.
one is a blue text message is about as secure as you can get.
Okay.
All right, Mary, go ahead.
Yeah, just you mentioned, I want to make sure I got all of the accounts that you hate. Yahoo, Pac Bell, and SBC Global. Is there anything else?
AT&T, if you have an AT&T account, that's using Yahoo also.
AT&T. Okay,
But I
thank you.
also I also say don't use the free email your internet provider provides to you.
Yeah.
Okay?
And just a secondary, like when I open Safari and I type something in the bar, the Google bar then comes up.
Doesn't have to.
Okay, and how do I change that? Is that's in
I'm going
settings?
to be going into Safari in my Safari presentation. Make sure I show you search. I've got that in here.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. And Randy, if we're going to get to the whole Astound thing we talked about earlier, but go ahead with your question.
So is now a good time for Bev and I to start with the internet?
Let me go. Bev, is your question about that too yet?
Briefly on the security thing, which you
Okay,
pretty
Randy,
much
I'm going to leave you up, and we're going to go to her and then Kathy, and then we'll come back to that because I think it's important.
I have two niece-in-laws, one in Texas, one in Mississippi, and I have refrained from offering a spontaneous, for any reason, visit to California that they might need in any form of communication. Is even a phone, or what's the, I mean, the
Wait a minute,
surveillance.
because you're afraid someone's going to intercept that and to come rob their home.
No, I'm more concerned about the government intercepting, like in Texas, where they're tracking if someone has asked about finding a reason. Reproductive age is the key word here. If they needed some woman's health issue that's not allowed, but like emails could be searched. The
Well,
blue.
don't believe the news on tracking that ability.
Okay,
That's so wrong. But
okay,
do they have iPhones?
yes, no, they're Android. Yeah.
Well, then you need to get new niece-in-laws. Um, so so if they're on an Android, they could be hacked. But you know what, you guys, you can't operate like, I mean, first of all that information's out there. Their phones, all of our phones. So I know people that turn location off on photos because they're worried about somebody tracking them, or location off on Google Maps and things. Doesn't matter whether the app tracks you, because your phone is being tracked like crazy from the phone providers. It triangulates from the cell phone towers, and yeah, it's it. I mean, you're being tracked. That's how they found out that Scott Peterson went to the Berkeley boat ramp and went out on a boat that day. I mean, you can turn all that stuff off, and believe me, my brother was the district attorney for Merced County for 30 years, and the phone companies make money on those warrants to get the cell phone tower information, and they're really happily giving it up, and it doesn't matter who it is, and they have to give it up. That's a law. So you can, if you think you're keeping yourself, the only way you can't be tracked on your phone is to turn it off and probably smash it and run over it with a car. Okay.
Leave it at home.
It's not going to happen. So you can be paranoid about it, or you can just say, look, I love the fact I have Google Maps and things like that. And just assume, and here's an example I used to give. I used to say that I like to have all my data where everybody else's data is. And I used to give the example. When they have the Rose Bowl, there are over 100,000 people in the Rose Bowl stadium. And if I were in that stadium, I could be pretty anonymous because I'm one of 100,000 people. So I want my data where there's a whole bunch of other data, so my data becomes less visible. And then I also said, it's very hard to be anonymous in an elevator because there's 5 people, right? So I used to say that, but now with the advent of what's called machine learning and artificial intelligence, and the ability for computers to go through and sift through huge, massive amounts of data, I no longer have obscurity. I no longer have obscurity and anonymity sitting in the Rose Bowl, because they can facial recognition every person in that in a heartbeat. So can we do anything about it? No. Is it good or is it right? No. But again, can we do anything about it? Now, you'll notice that all these people doing crimes these days are really, these people, they are really worried about COVID, and they always wear masks. They're not wearing the mask because of COVID. They're wearing masks so they won't be seen. Okay. Yeah, but that's about the only thing. So it's, but again, you try to do everything you can to keep the bad people from having it, but unfortunately, everybody's going to have access to it. And I'm not agreeing with it or saying it's right, but I only want to fight the battles that I might have a chance, not of winning, but influencing. And I don't think I can influence that. And It's I guess I'm a defeatist at that point. So, and Bev and Randy will come back because we want to talk about ISPs. Kathy, go ahead.
Hi, quick question. I was listening to your presentation on my AirPod and the battery ran out and I tried to switch, and this has happened twice now, to the MacBook, I don't know, microphone. And it, I just get the revolving
Is it
circle.
only when you're on Zoom?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's probably,
Yeah. So what
yeah.
you on Zoom, so your computer would probably switch over, but on your setting on Zoom where the microphone is, you also may have to toggle the sound setting down there too.
I did. I pressed MacBook Air
And
microphone.
did it work?
No, then I totally restarted my computer. Even getting out of Zoom didn't work. And
Yeah, it was still grabbed onto it for some reason,
oh,
unfortunately.
okay.
When you get the little beep in the AirPods, try to switch. You go up to Bluetooth and you could switch
Oh,
up there, or go into system settings
yeah.
and change sound. And then in Zoom, you want to be on same as system.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. That's a
All
good
right.
idea. Thank you.
Sorry that happened, but yeah.
Okay.
All right. Harmon, go for it.
Okay, you're talking about the blue text. And I'm assuming that means iPhone to iPhone.
iOS device to iOS device could be Mac. If you're using iMessage, could be iPad or could be iPhone.
Okay, well, this is a sister-in-law, not a niece-in-law, but her
No, you're asking for a friend.
no, I'm not really expecting an answer, but her iPhone began responding
Yeah.
green.
Yep.
So
And is it still there or was it a temporary thing?
it's been going on for several months.
So she should go into settings on the phone and go to messages and make sure iMessage is turned on. And if it's not, or if it is, turn it off and turn it back on. But the other thing is, it may have inadvertently signed out of her Apple ID, so it's not using iMessage. And she should do the hard reset. So, in other words, it can be an iPhone, but iMessage is not working. And just to explain the difference here is a text message or green message goes over the cell phone towers like old timey texts did. Okay. So that's why, and with Android, it's changed. They're still going to be green, but they can go over the data network now. But what it's green, think of it going over the text network. And so what she's done is if iMessage isn't working, it goes through the cell. Whereas when it uses iMessage, it uses data, whether it's on a Wi-Fi or on a cell network. That's why the blue iMessage works if you're traveling in another country and you don't have cell service, but you're on Wi-Fi, the message will go over because it goes like data. Think of it like an email where it goes over data. Does that
So
make
this is
sense?
something that she could have clicked when she was in Europe?
It could have, or it could have just gone off, or in fact, she could be logged out of her. If she's blue with anybody,
No.
yeah, then it's an issue. iMessage needs to get turned on, and
So on her phone.
on her phone, yes.
Yeah.
So
Thanks, Ken.
you're welcome. All righty. So both, and I'm going to have you guys are both going to ask the question I think is better because you can frame it more than I can. And they asked these questions before everybody got here, and I think it's important for everybody to hear this because it changes all the time. Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, for me, it is like Groundhog Day. Every so often I get a
Yeah, and that's what's behind
increase.
him, by the way, which
I
is what?
know.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow, but it's already here for me. So yeah, I lose a discount on my internet provider, which provides for me the internet and the streaming TV service. So I have three questions, and I know Bev has some questions also. Let me just kind of phrase and bullet point my three questions and then move on and be quiet and listen to you and Bev. First question would be, what device or devices are available that I could purchase to actually record either or over the air TV or through a streaming service? So that would be number one. Are there hard drive devices I can plug into something and record TV? Number two would be my second bullet point would be like rabbit ears for over the air TV reception of good quality TV rabbit ears. So number three and the last bullet point for me before Bev would join in would be like T-Mobile, just getting the T-Mobile internet with the TV streaming, subscribe to YouTube TV, and take it from there. So those are my three: the how to record, rabbit ears possibility, and three, T-Mobile with a YouTube TV subscription.
So yours are all based on TV, but also possibly internet.
You need the internet for
Okay.
computers
then,
in the home.
Great. And then Bev, what was your
Well,
question?
one, I can, depending after what you say, I have done over the air DVR recording now for about 3 years. So I have a little bit of experience and I'm looking for a new machine on that. My question is, I don't have any TV. I'm strictly over the air. I do have an Apple TV thingy, if I need to stream something. But anyway, so it's internet providing. I currently have SureWest/CCI with a modem. So I know you're familiar with, I think, SureWest, Ken. But it's fiber optic up to the box and then hardwire throughout my house and Wi-Fi.
Right.
So my contract's coming up. They've increased. There was AT&T solicitors in the neighborhood offering tempting. I told them every time I do something off the cuff, I get burned. So no, no, no.
Sure.
And I thought I will bring it to the group for the current view. I had mentioned I had consideration of the T-Mobile thing that you put in the window.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are unreliable resources from the street that said, "Oh, you won't get good, decent reception."
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah.
So there's three things here. We're talking about streaming as far as content, and we'll call it TV for lack of a better word. There's also the ability to record that. And the most important part is the internet, because that's the only way you can get any of that. So, and I'm going to start with the streaming thing first, because people that are used to good old cable TV that haven't ever experienced streaming, like, what the heck's that? And Apple TV is unfortunately named Apple TV because it's really should be called Apple Streaming. So let's talk about streaming a second. For lack of a better thing, think of YouTube as streaming. And for instance, we're live on YouTube right now. And the beauty of that is this will be then recorded and you can watch it later. So that's the equivalent of the DVR, digital video recorder, that we've all had when we had cable. And that's very convenient for a couple of reasons. It's called time shifting. In other words, we no longer had to watch something. We didn't have to be home to see the Beverly Hillbillies. We could record on an old VCR if you ever got it to work. But then, of course, the power goes out and the clock is right twice a day because it's flashing 12, right? So we were there, and streaming would be if you watch something live over the internet, that's streaming. And that's how you would watch terrestrial TV from either cable if you didn't have a DVR or from an antenna. Now, we're all too busy in our lives and we want to skip commercials, which is a big deal. And so if we're going to talk about the content that comes from the typical TV providers, let's just say Channel 3 for lack of a better one, because if I say CNN or I say Fox, people are going to go all crazy about politics. No, we're talking about just content here. So, Channel 3, first of all, for most of us that live in the Sacramento area, we do have some people that are not in the Sacramento area here, but let's talk about how we can see Channel 3. Now, admittedly, the network TV and the programs they offer are dropping off dramatically. And especially anyone that gets their news, local TV news like Channel 3 is great, but national news, all the providers, doesn't matter if it's Fox, doesn't matter if it's MSNBC, all of the news shows are dropping off dramatically because of podcasts and online talent that are going out there and doing that. And I think that's wonderful because you get to choose the content you want to. On the other hand, there's some confirmation bias there because if you're to the left, you're likely to watch more left shows. If you're to the right, you're likely to watch more right shows. So therefore, don't get wrapped up into that. The smart consumer will go and try to sample both of those to try get a better idea. And there's some sources out there like I really like a news feed I get that has nothing to do with video or anything. It's 1440 Daily is what it's called. 1440 Daily. I've been a subscriber. Somebody posted it on a Facebook and I went back. I've been doing it for 8 years or something. And it's a once a day news feed and it is right down the middle and it just gives you a couple highlights of things that are in the news and then for the most part gives you an unbiased view of what it is. There are also aggregators out there that now will, one called Ground News, I think it is, and I'm not too sure, I haven't investigated it much, but it will give you, oh, this article is biased this way, this article is biased that way. So that's all about that. But let's go back to Channel 3. Local news is less biased than national news. So we'll just use that as an example and forget about whether it's political. We want to find out if the Sacramento River is going to overflow its banks. Okay. The best way to find that out is go on Twitter, first of all, or what new X. Now, forget Elon Musk, forget politics. X is absolutely, everyone will tell you, the best source for any breaking news because everybody can post there for free. Now, yes, anybody can post wrong stuff, but the best thing they've done is they can post videos on there, like the DC, the horrible thing that just happened in DC. Twitter had it right away, or X had it right away, and you were able to go see videos of it, and people would be commenting. And then they had clips from local TV stations, and they had people that uploaded their video from their iPhone and things like that. So there's no bias there at all. It's in fact just news. Now, if there's something posted on there that is political, instead of having censors, because as we found out with Google and Facebook, the censors that they were using are not censors, excuse me, the fact checkers, which became censors, were very biased. And that's been proven now through files that have come out. And in fact, Mark Zuckerberg has admitted it with Facebook. So I'm not talking from the right here. I'm talking about Mark Zuckerberg, who gave $400 million to the Democrat Party, came out and said, yes, it was biased and we were pressured. So the best thing is the community of all the people can put in input, and as you gain, if you know, and they say, well, no, that's not right, and you kind of can have an online argument about it if you want, but what happens is the group will have more knowledge than a fact checker. And also AI at this point is biased, but only because AI is a function of all the information it's getting its information from. So therefore, it's gonna gather one side or the other. But AI will AI will finally be able, hopefully, to sift through that and realize what it is. It was, so that's coming. But let's go back to the well, and anyway, so let's go back to KCRA. You can put an antenna up at your house, and it points towards Walnut Grove. And it's weird because there's some stations that are in different locations. And when you talk about antennas, you want to antennaweb.com or .org, I believe. So Al can put that link is. Antenna Web will show you compass location as to where you need to point your antenna if you have a directional antenna. So rabbit ears, maybe, but every antenna is kind of directional. So you want to point it so you get the best thing down in Elk Grove, or not Elk Grove, Walnut Grove. So the app Antenna Web will help with that. There's some other ones out there. But the other thing is, if you're getting an antenna, you may want to put it in your attic. Now, if you have the metal backed insulation, that'll make it really tough because it won't saturate that. But they have what's called boosted antennas or amplified antennas, where you plug them into power and they actually create a little bit better. What they do is they make it so the coaxial cable doesn't degrade the signal. The longer the cable from the antenna is, you get some signal loss out of it. So years ago, I wanted to drop my expensive TV stuff. There's online how to make an antenna with a wire coat hanger. So now the hardest thing is go find a wire coat hanger anymore. But anyway, it's this piece of wood and it shows you how to put it out and everything. And I called it the Kentenna. So I wrote on it with a Sharpie and it was Ken's antenna. And the damn thing worked really well. But you can get a inexpensive antenna that is boosted. And the thing is, you may want what's called a directional antenna rather than omnidirectional. In other words, you want to pinpoint it towards there. So that would be if you want to watch terrestrial TV to a box. Now, you used to have to get the digital converter box because when they went to HD, they went to all digital. Most any TV, well, actually, part of the thing now is you'll get TVs that don't have tuners in them anymore. So you may need to get a tuning box. So you're going to be able to get KCRA over that. Then what happens is they make some boxes that allow you to record that signal. I'm out of the loop on this. There are a couple of them. There's one called Home or something like that, but I'll just leave that out there. Sling used to do it. Anyway, so you would have to record those, and they're kind of kludgy because software is all about that. So I'd try find one that had an app or something where you could do it on the computer. And that's, of course, free. And if you're watching it live, you have to suffer through 8 minutes of commercial for 22 minutes of content. So, which is a long time. And anyway, so that's one way. Another way you can get KCRA is through a local TV provider, which would be DirecTV, Dish TV. I'd be willing to bet at some point Starlink will do it, but they're not now. So they come in. You also have whoever your cable provider is, because they provide TV. Well, I say they provide. They'll charge you exorbitantly all of these for TV because they're having to pay ESPN. They're like, I never watch ESPN, but they would be charging me for the right to ESPN charges them whether I watch ESPN or not. So they haven't taken all of that apart and broken it up. So then the other one you have is AT&T has Uverse or any of your providers. So those are coming over wires, but Dish, Direct, all of these, it's nice because now they also offer it where you get a streaming portion of that. For instance, if you have a DVR that it's the DVR over the cable is the best. So, well, because you're used to it. You change channels, it's the remote you go to. That's what, if you just want to have it, you're going to pay for it. But we'll talk about negotiations in a second. So when you do that, you're able to replay it really easy. You can skip through the commercials by hitting the 30-second ahead button quickly a bunch of times. And, but it's pricey. So here's the deal. If you have TV with them, you probably have internet with that same company, and you need to negotiate every 6 months or whenever they raise the rates. You need to find out how much they're offering the service for. Or let's say most of you are in AT&T and you're on Xfinity, you can say, well, AT&T is offering me this. So you have to go all the way through and you get to what's called the retention department. You have to threaten to cancel. Companies have gotten a little bit better. They're trying to appease their existing customers because it's really expensive to acquire customers, and they're bleeding customers to streaming like crazy. So anyway, you can negotiate that price and it might be good for 6 months and then you go away. But if you cancel within 30, 60, or 90 days, you can be treated as a new customer. And as a new customer, you can come back in and they'll lock you in. No contracts usually. You don't want to do contracts, whatever you do, but they'll give you a 2-year price lock. And that will give you an incentive because you're, quote, a new customer. So I'm going to talk about some alternate ways to do that. So we've talked about how to get it over the air. We've talked about paying exorbitant amounts of money to get KCRA to your house. And then the other way is to stream it. Now, I'm only going to speak of one of the probably 30 media things. Al, can you do a search for a link that is clark.com streaming TV chart? So my favorite podcaster, Clark Howard, clark.com has a huge staff and he puts together. So when you get to streaming, for instance, YouTube TV or Philo or one of these others, you have to figure out what it is important to you. Because before you know it, you're having to get 3 streaming services to get what you were paying, and you're going to pay as much, if not more, than what you were paying to get on your cable TV bill. So the streaming services, you have to figure out what shows are important to you.
Oh,
So you can use he has a chart, and Al just get it there, and you go in and it'll show all the different providers how much it is, and you can figure out what you want to watch. Make yourself a spreadsheet. Get used to numbers and see what it does. Lisa, go ahead. You're muted. You're still muted. There you
Yeah,
go.
this may need to be later, but you did bring up, somebody had brought up Hulu. Well, no, somebody had brought up T-Mobile internet.
We're going to talk about that last.
Okay, great. Take away my raised hand.
Yeah, because we need to. The reason is there's a lot there, but also it builds up to it. Do you
Right.
need to do streaming or do you need to do over the air?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you though, and don't let me forget. So the find out what service it is. Well, then the question comes up is, well, I like to record my shows. Well, I'm going to tell you how it works with most streaming services and how it works for YouTube TV. So I transitioned to YouTube TV. I didn't want everybody to think I transitioned, but never mind. So I went over to it took me a while. I wasn't on the bleeding edge. I was a Luddite, and I finally got rid of my I was fed up with paying these prices to the cable TV. So I went with YouTube TV. And it was a much better price when I first went with it. It's gotten up higher because ESPN, the Discovery Channel, all those places charge money for their content. So anyway, with YouTube TV, I have an unlimited DVR, but it's online. So here's how it works. And this is how it works for most of them. Very similar to how we're using YouTube Live right now. So let's just say we're watching Channel 3 News because, and I'm going to talk about weather in a bit. So we have the weather on Channel 3, and you watch it live on YouTube TV. That's okay. But if I want to skip the commercials, I'll come back and watch it a half hour later because it's not like a lot's going to change. But I have to hit this fast forward button anywhere from 14 to 20 times. I tap, 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 and I can skip forward. Each time I hit it, it's like 30 seconds. So anyway, you can't skip commercials automatically, but you can fast forward through it. Okay. And it's a DVR. So what I've done is I've told it, oh yeah, record Channel 3 at 6 o'clock every night. So every time it comes up. So the beauty is, let's say you have a show that you watch. We talked about Beverly Hillbillies earlier. Let's say Beverly Hillbillies was still on. And it usually comes on at 7 o'clock every Wednesday. But let's say there's some news thing that made the show get delayed. If it's a scheduled delay, the smart DVR will wait until it really comes up and shows it and record it. And it also does a pretty good job if you're watching a sports event and it goes over, but it's not perfect. But for the most part, it's pretty good about that. So it accomplishes the DVR. It gets you what you want. It's there all you want, and it's sitting on their server. And I have to tell you, I live alone, and I have not turned on any one of my 3 65-inch TVs. Well, one's a 55 in probably 2 years, because I sit on my couch or in bed or at the kitchen table with my iPad mini, and I watch whatever I want whenever I want. Or if I'm traveling anywhere in the US, I watch what I want when I want on the device I want. And it has a DVR. Okay. And if you have friends that have YouTube TV, you might ask them if they'd like to cut their bill in half. Enough said. Get where I'm going? Doesn't work on Netflix very easily, but might work on YouTube TV and some of the other streamings. Okay. So yeah, they might see what you watch. You might see what they watch, but anyway, just saying, not endorsing. So that covers that. But now to have streaming, you have to have good internet. Well, so first of all, so streaming is this when you were watching YouTube, I'm sorry, when you're watching KCRA on your cable, it was essentially streaming it to the box over a cable, and then the box could record it and do that. Now, and if you use the boxes that are using an antenna, those actually store it locally on a hard drive. But streaming does not store it locally, and that's good and that's bad. Now, for instance, Netflix, boy, maybe even YouTube TV. And if you have YouTube, regular YouTube Premium, you can download things to your device. Netflix, Amazon Prime, all of those do that. And when I'm getting ready to take a trip, if I have a long international flight, I'll make sure I download enough to my device, my iPad mini, so that I can watch those when I go. Now, again, remember the current thing with DVRs is you can access your content remotely. So you're getting the with I'm not sure with Astound, but with Xfinity and AT&T TV or DirecTV, you essentially have the streaming ability too to do your content. So that's come a long way. But the problem is if you travel internationally with any of these, including Netflix and others, you may not be able to see your content. That brings in a whole nother thing I'm going to do a 2-minute thing on is all, and that's called a VPN, where I could be in Mozambique, and if I have good internet, I would use a VPN, which then looks like I'm in Los Angeles. And therefore, I could get my streaming content. VPNs can be used for security and other things, but there are ways to do it. It's getting easier, but it's not easy. So, Mary has a question. You're muted still.
I was unable to hear all of what you said, but if you have multiple TVs and you have like YouTube, whatever, do you still need the little box from Xfinity?
And you broke up a little. You mean for YouTube?
Well, say you get the YouTube Live or Plus or whatever it is, so you get
YouTube TV. Well,
the TV, all of the whole thing.
YouTube
so
is
that,
all the free content with ads on the internet, like where our stuff is. YouTube TV is
Right.
like Hulu or one of those TV services. Okay.
right. But like I have Xfinity but I have 4 TVs and I like to watch stuff on the TVs and only one of them can I see the stuff that I've recorded on the DVR. So if I went to something,
Well, you might have some really old gear because you should be able to access your DVR content on any TV. So here's the deal, and I've always been, as a single household, I had when I was on Comcast, it was called at the time, I had it set up so I had one DVR box and I didn't pay for extra boxes because I had them routed to all the TVs. But at that point, they had to see whatever the box was on was what every TV was on. So it wasn't like, be different if I had somebody, if I had a roommate in a different bedroom, they don't want to watch what I want, you'd have to do another box. So you should be able to see that content. The other way to do it is you can wire the TVs together. But remember now, you should look into it because with Xfinity, you can access it on your iPad, or you may even be able to access it using a box. So that brought up, and it made me think about this. So we have Apple TV or Roku or an Amazon Fire device.
right.
Those are, so there's smart TVs and there's dumb TVs. A dumb TV means that it only has it for content, it has to depend on something hooked to it, like an old VCR or a cable box or something like that. And that's okay. There are some TVs that have tuners and they're still a dumb TV. Or there are some, quote, smart TVs, and believe me, I use quotes because they have the ability to stream inside of it, and their software usually sucks. So you get a little box like a Roku, an Apple TV, or a Fire Stick. And what those have is the ability, just like your phone, to have apps in it. So that app might be the YouTube TV app, the Netflix app, the Amazon Prime app, and they all live in that device, and you sign into your account, and then you can do it. And you need one of those for each of the TVs. But those devices, you pay for the device. The darn Amazon Fire Stick, you can get for like 25 bucks. The Roku's kind of the same thing. I mean, the better you can pay more than that, but the Apple TV one is a bit pricier. Sometimes that stuff's built into the TV. Or what I do is I have it on my iPad, and if Lord knows I ever go watch it on a TV, I fire my TV up and I have the app on my iPad and I send it to my TV. So I'm doing all my controls and everything right on my iPad, especially when I want to skip through that 8 minutes of commercials. So that's how that works. And the difference is with Xfinity, with AT&T, with DirecTV, and with Dish, you pay because they can do it. You pay for every box on every TV if you want it to be different. But you really only have one box bringing that stuff in. Does
By
that
the
make
way, some of the Samsungs, what I've got Samsung TVs, and the does not allow me to download the Xfinity app, so I can't see what I've recorded on the DVR.
Well, I don't know if that's from Xfinity or from Samsung.
It's from Samsung. There, just so it's a caution to folks, there are a couple of Samsung models or whatever, and I found out about it after I had already bought it.
So a workaround for that, Mary, is do you have an iPad?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So on your iPad, you do your Xfinity and then you throw it to your TV from there.
Right. Then you can't use your iPad for games while you're watching TV, but other
Okay,
than that, it works.
then use your iPhone and since your iPhone, it seems like, oh, that's a really small picture. It sends full 4K video to the TV.
I'll give it a try.
Good.
But then to sum that up, then if I use the apps, I don't need that little box that I'm paying every, $6 a month to rent.
The one main box, if it's your DVR and doing recording, you do,
Right.
unless Xfinity has expanded what they're offering online.
Okay, I'll check with that.
Sometime I remember last when I had it, which was a decade ago, you could access your DVR remotely from other places.
Yeah, I
But
can.
now they may be doing it live on that. I can't speak to that.
No, I can get the Xfinity app on using Apple TV on another TV.
And you guys renegotiate your stuff all the time. I'm going to go to internet in a second. Barbara, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question about the directional antennas that are with boosters. What's a good way to find a reliable one? Are there places to go that have reliable ratings for those things?
It's just like people talk about cell phone carriers. Well, it didn't work at my house. It's all anecdotal. I would just look at reviews on it. I don't know. Antenna Web may have some ideas. There are good companies out there.
Antenna Direct is a site that I posted in the chat.
Good.
And there's also posted some information about where to point your antenna. And there's also a couple of really good apps that I use on the App Store that, I just set it right on top and literally set my iPhone on top of my antenna with the elements and then move it around.
In other words, the iPhone is using the compass and your location to point, and you're doing it. It's not that the antenna is hooked to an app on the phone. There are some fancy ones that'll tune it in like that, but that's more than you need to spend. But so much of it is you think about the walls in your house and the clearance between if there's a house next door. Yeah, you're really limited. Think of line of sight, even though it does a little better now. What's ironic is they're now using higher frequency waves because of HD, which don't penetrate as well as the old. So in other words, remember we had channel 3 through 13 was UHF. I'm sorry, VHF. And then UHF was the old channel 31 and 36 and 40. And they were a higher frequency. Well, HD is now even a higher frequency. It doesn't travel as far and doesn't penetrate buildings as well. So,
okay.
All right, which is stupid geeky stuff that just is the way it is. But consequently, those have been offered to, that's like a lot of the bandwidth that T-Mobile got up because it's better for cellular. All right. So if you're going to do streaming, you have to have good internet. So good internet is colloquially called broadband. Now, to be qualified as broadband, there's a certain parameter. It has to be like 5 gigs or faster or something. So back 2 decades ago, our only choices were, well, there were 3. There was satellite internet, and old satellite internet was great. Well, was the only thing that people out in rural places could use, and it came from satellites, geosynchronous satellites, way up top. And the problem is, it travels, it takes so long to get down here. If you remember when you had like, there would be a news report coming from Berlin, and the reporter would be there'd like be a 2-second delay between the question and the answer. Well, that's called latency. And what latency was because that had to go to a satellite and then back down to Berlin, and then the answer had to come back from Berlin to the satellite back to Sacramento. Okay, so that was latency, and it was because the satellites are in geosynchronous orbit, which are way far away, but the satellite stays stationary to where you are, and that would be the old that's how you do direct TV, and Dish were old time satellites like that. But the problem is, because an internet is, you type in a website, apple.com, it has to go up to the satellite, then back down to the server and say, oh, they want apple.com, goes up to the server, comes back down. So even for voice calls, it really became, it was too slow. It was almost like the old radio. Okay, over, all right, and then the other person talks. So the other one is cable internet, which comes in on a coaxial cable. That's very strong, very robust, and very fast internet. The other one we had was over our phone lines. Our phone lines, think of you guys, AT&T, Roseville Telephone, the old Sure West, that's called DSL. DSL, digital subscriber line, I think it was. And it's using those old, well, it did use those old wire lines. And the problem is, those little phone twisted pairs, in fact, they wouldn't even give you DSL if you were more than 3 miles from what they call a central station. And the problem is, the thinner wires can't, it's like, think of it as a straw or a garden hose. If you have a garden hose that's only a 1/4 inch round, you're not going to get a lot of water. If you have a garden hose that's the size of a fire hose and you've got enough coming behind it, you could fill a swimming pool. So that applied to coaxial cable versus the small line that came in from over your phone line. And consequently, it had to do phone calls too. And it did okay for voice and phone calls. But for internet, it never had the bandwidth that was needed. Also, the lines are buried underground. What happens is when it rains and it gets soaked, they don't short out, but they just don't work as well. So DSL is borderline broadband. And in the beginning, that's all you had. And it's improved because I've done some different things. But regardless, if you only have that, that is your least best internet. Well, I should say the big satellite. If you're out in the boonies, the big satellite's the worst. But cable is going to be better. Fiber, which AT&T is offering in certain areas, but fiber is a dead end thing. I mean, because 5G, and I'll talk about that in a second. So fiber, if you have fiber, Sure West or CCI used to be Sure West, and Sure West acquired WinStar. There might be some of you in the Sacramento area that had WinStar, which was fiber, wicked fast. Fiber is great. Fiber is expensive, and AT&T's putting out some of it, but it's a dead end thing because it's too expensive to do that, what's called last mile connectivity. So the alternative to that, there's 2 alternatives out now. And again, cable being the most robust, that would be Comcast Xfinity, that would be Astound, which used to be Wave in West Sacramento and up here in Rockland and Lincoln. And the first alternative is the phone companies. Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile offer home internet. Now, that is using the same cell towers that we use for our phone. So if you don't get good reception at home with one of those providers, you're not going to get good reception with home internet. But I have to tell you, and I'll use me as an example. I live up on a bit of a hill. My iPhone from where I'm sitting right now gets about 2 bars. So I don't get great coverage. And I'm going to do a speed test. Let me do it here. I'm going to do. So let me do a speed test really quick. And I'm doing it on my 5G. So again, I've got 2 bars and I'm on 5G UC. I'm going to restart it because it just flipped to UC. Let me see so I get a good thing. 5G UC is the faster. So it was coming in at about 20 or 29. I'm getting 130 with only 2 bars, megabits down. 128 is what I got. Up will always be less. So up isn't a big deal unless you're trying to upload big files, like if you're a YouTuber and you have to get your content on the internet. So my up appears to be about 660. Okay, I'm going to turn my Wi-Fi back on because I have T-Mobile home internet and I'm going to go direct to it. Let me just get it here a second. Get direct. We'll give it a second to populate. So again, I only have 2 bars on it, and my home internet is sitting on my shelf right up here near a window, and I live on a bit of a hill, so it's pretty good reception. So let me see what I get over my home internet. And it should be pretty close to the same, to be honest. I am getting, so I get notoriously between 150 and 300 down. And that's plenty for streaming on 3 TVs and things like that. Yeah, actually it went a little higher. I was 210 down and 20 up. So, and that's in a marginal area. Now, AT&T and Verizon aren't as good here. But the beauty of these is you can always try them out because most of them have a 15 to 30-day trial period. You don't cancel your current internet unless you're sure this works. So you can look at the maps online and see where it's available. And I would be willing to bet that most of you would pay less for AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile home internet than you currently pay for your internet. My T-Mobile, because I have a T-Mobile account, is somewhere 35, 40 bucks a month, unlimited. Now, here's a tactic. If you want to, those of you that have cable or AT&T, you could, there's no contract with these home internet things. You go get the box and you put it up, you see if it works, and then you say, okay, I'm going to pay for this for 3 months. And you cancel your other one, all of a sudden you're a new customer. And you get that 2-year deal, which, Randy, I just saw on Facebook. I tried looking for the ad. I saw an ad on Facebook early this morning, $45 for 1 gig Ethernet on Astound. 2-year, not contract, 2-year, basically, they'll honor that for 2 years. That's a hell of a deal. Now, one thing you have to watch is some Astound you want to look at how much usage you're using. Look at your current thing and see how much per month you're using, because sometimes they have a 400 gig limit or things like that. Most of these home internet ones are unlimited. Now, that being said, and I just had a really good, so I did a 210 down and a 26 up, and it works great. And I don't have an external antenna on mine; it simply does it. When I went to the T-Mobile website, my address never qualified. Somebody told me, "Oh yeah, just go into the store." I mean, I didn't know this, and I wish I had 2 years ago. I just went in, and so basically, if you're a T-Mobile customer, they put it on your account. Otherwise, they're going to give you this little box that you plug into power is all you do, and you position it. It helps you in the app to do it. There's no commitment. You got to bring the box back, or they're going to charge your credit card whatever the amount of the box is, $250 or whatever. But you just pay your monthly bill. So I just got 254 down and 27 up. So I'm really happy with it. And it's nice because I was able to get rid of Astound, and it's plenty for streaming. It does have, they have some instances, they can get a little bit loaded up like any of the providers. There's the latency is good. That's the other thing. When you do a speed test, you want to have it fast. And one other alternative now is Starlink. Now, Starlink is from SpaceX. Starlink is pretty incredible. Let me pull it up.
Ken, when you said you went into the store, a T-Mobile store or what store?
Yeah, and I encourage on T-Mobile, they have corporate stores and they have regional stores. It really doesn't matter. But yeah, I just went into the store and said, okay, I wanna get it. And they said, oh, okay. They didn't look up my address or anything else like that. So, and again, you can do the same with AT&T and Verizon. My recommendation is you could try all three, not at the same time, but you could try one for a month, and then another one for a month, and then the other one for the month. And in the meantime, you can disconnect your other account, and now you're a free customer. So the problem is, if you're like me, and you probably have nearly 100 devices tied into your Wi-Fi, it can get interesting. So I have a router that sits so when you get these devices, most of us have a router, a modem. Modem is how it connects to the internet. Modulator, demodulator is what it stands for. So whether it comes in by phone wire, whether it comes in by cable, or whether it comes by satellite, the modem takes that signal and makes it digital. And then it is also a router, and the router allows you to have multiple devices connected either by hardwire or by wireless. So if you have a router that you're using on your own, and that's your big thing, you become very portable. I just plugged the Ethernet cable from my router into my T-Mobile. I took it out of my old cable box, and that's all it took. So that's an easy way to do it, but there's another trick. So, and this is a little complex, but if you have to know exactly, and it's case sensitive, what your Wi-Fi network is named. Exactly. And your password is case sensitive. And this won't happen every time, but it should work. My T-Mobile box says, well, I changed it back, but basically I had used it. Now I have a router beside it, but I named it exactly what my router is named, and it's Ken's Wi-Fi network. Okay, capital K, Wi-Fi has a dash in it, it has to be exactly the same. And then I use my same password. And that way, when I fire up that box, my Ring doorbell, my Wise cameras, my Apple TVs, everything else looks for that same name and says, oh, yeah, I'm connecting to Ken's Wi-Fi network. It doesn't know that it changed. there can be some little issues with that, but that's one way to do it. But the best way to do it is have a separate router from your box that you connect to any one of these boxes, and all of a sudden you become very portable because you don't care what the name is on the AT&T home device or the T-Mobile home or on the Verizon home. And that works really well because believe me, to redo all your Amazon devices, to redo your, I have so much stuff, it would be terrible and tough. You know, the iPhones and iPads are easy. So I hope that made sense. Oh, Starlink, by the way, I brought up, let me share the page. Starlink is a newcomer and it is pretty damn amazing. And let me move that out of there. So you get a satellite for your home. I'm sorry, a satellite dish, which is about this big. And so for $249. So you buy the dish and you own the dish. Well, they call it a dish. It's really a square, but we've always called them satellite dishes. And then you have to get a plan. So this is the best price on that. You can, I think they'll buy it back from you for some amount at some point, and it's pretty good. And it uses satellite internet, but I'll explain here a second after I talk about the prices. So this is fantastic for rural areas. Unlimited plan starting at $120 a month. They also have another plan with and you can get a smaller dish that uses Roam, and this would be a backup internet plan. It's $50 a month, but you only get 5 gigs, I think. Let me see here. I clicked on it. There we go. Yeah, you get 50 gigabytes a month. Now, again, there's no contract. You can turn it on and off all you want. If you have a couple homes or you travel a lot, you can get Roam Unlimited. What I'm doing is I'm going to be in Yosemite, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and they have very terrible coverage. I have the small dish, and I can put it and stick it inside my car up to the glass, and I can do internet while I'm driving if I need to, or just anywhere I stop. And it's 50 gigabytes for 50 a month, and you can turn it off and on all you want. So let's get that dish. Let's see here. So that's all it is. It takes nothing to install. The home one versus the, where's the, anyway, they have a portable one that's a couple $100 more than this, but it's the size, basically the size of a sheet of paper and only slightly thicker, and it plugs into USB. And the reason you can get super good speeds and latency, believe it or not, when I was in Antarctica, Starlink is what Viking uses, what a lot of the airlines are starting to use. I had better internet in Antarctica than I do at home. It blew me away. It just blew me away. Now, we talked about latency. The other satellites that are up in geosynchronous orbit, let's see here. So a geosynchronous satellite is very far away. And what it does is the satellite is so far away because the satellite stays in one position so that it's always over the same spot on the globe, which really makes sense because that would be, oh, that way you have coverage and things like that. And what the geosynchronous orbit is, basically, we all know about gravity and we know about centripetal force. So at this point in the away from the Earth, the outward pressure, because it's moving really fast, remember it's spinning with the globe, so it's spinning a lot faster than the surface of the Earth, and the Earth is spinning pretty fast. So centripetal force is pushing it out, Gravity is keeping it attracted to us. So at this location, with minor corrections, it's staying in exactly the same spot all the time. The way Starlink does it is they have a bunch of ones, but they're much lower Earth orbit. And what that does is, so instead of one satellite, they've got a whole bunch of them, and no satellite is over you at all times. In fact, many satellites would be over you. And what happens is, if let's say I was in Antarctica, but I was connecting to the internet through Peru, it would bounce up to the satellite and then down to a server in Peru and do its connection that way. So what happens is, because the satellites are lower, the latency is very low. And the latency was real close to what it is from regular internet at your house. And latency is important because otherwise things seem very slow. You can have all the speed you want, but it just seems slow. So they're able to do that low Earth orbit, and it's 342 miles, which seems that's not a lot, where the other ones are whatever, I forget what it said it was. Let's see if it tells me. Geosynchronous. Well, that's low Earth orbit. What about geosynchronous? Come on. Oh, here it was. 22,000 miles. That's why the geosynchronous satellites take so long versus, what was it, 300 and something. So anyway, it's an alternative. You know, I think your best alternative, and the thing really coming good, is it's using the 5G. If you're in a rural area, the home internets won't work as well because you're farther from the towers. Okay, so that's a lot to digest. You guys will have to go back over the video. So any questions on that before we move on to Safari? We covered streaming. I mean, we covered a lot there, but I think it was right. Go ahead, Lisa. Unmute yourself.
Thank you. So just to follow up on my T-Mobile question, I've got SureWest CCI out here. They keep raising their rates. I heard about T-Mobile, and I think there's even another one. What I've been cautioned about those, because I subscribe to Hulu, Live, Disney, that kind of thing, is because T-Mobile, I don't know that I have the words correct here, doesn't always use a stable IP, that then the streaming service loses connection, and then you go back and you have to resynchronize it. I don't know how often. This is just, it's one of those things that has been said. I've not checked it, thoroughly.
Read that? You read that, or somebody said it?
I've read it on Hulu, I think. Reviews for Hulu.
Okay, reviews. Yeah.
Customers saying, yeah, we love Hulu. What we don't like is T-Mobile, on the go. It causes a conflict at times.
Well, when they say on the go, were they traveling is what it seemed like?
No, it's the having it at home.
Okay, yeah, they call it T-Mobile Home, and AT&T calls it
Okay.
AT&T Air, and I think
Yeah.
Verizon calls it Home. I mean, this way we're talking the same nomenclature, because
exactly.
it is different if you're moving, like
Yeah,
in an RV or something versus
Right.
home.
No,
So,
T-Mobile Home would
what
be internet.
I find that interesting, and I've never had an issue with that.
Okay.
But
No, they
because
didn't say it was with all streaming. Hulu seems to have this peculiar.
yeah, and the thing is, Hulu may be trying to verify where you live
Yeah, that's.
because they don't want you sharing your Hulu with other people.
I would never do that.
Yeah, and so that may be an impediment to that, but I would think that so basically what happens is everybody gets what's called an IP address, an Internet Protocol address, which is your home address on the internet. And it's a regional thing. Like, for instance, Randy, you live in Rockland, but I don't. but my pathway onto the internet goes through Rockland. So when I put in like, where's the best place to buy carrots, the Google search thinks I'm in Rockland and it's going to give me results. Sometimes it can be other places. So it doesn't know me exactly. That's my virtual address, and it defines a region. So what happens is that IP address can change, but it should be pretty consistent. And if that's only a Hulu only issue, I don't know. You might be able to resolve it with with a VPN, but I'd have to look in, and I don't know.
No, no, I don't. I just wondered if
It's
you'd heard
interesting. It's interesting.
anything like that. And
But
Back in the old days, there were a lot of services that required, it's called a static IP.
right.
static, not stable. Thank you.
Yeah. That most of the services are able to deal with the thing changing nowadays. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's been
and
a
you
while
might be
since I've
able to
looked.
you might be able to create a static IP within the device, but I don't know. But and from what you've read, it seems like it's a T-Mobile and Hulu only issue.
Specifically,
Yeah,
T-Mobile
so if
was
that's the
mentioned.
case and Hulu's important to you, I'd get it and try it out. And if not, maybe not AT&T and maybe not Verizon, don't have a problem with it.
Yeah. Okay.
The beauty of these is most of them give you, I think, 15 days or a month to try it out, and you just take it back if it doesn't work. And
Yeah.
I wholly advise that. Now, here's the key thing. Find out. So when you use the app to set it up, it will usually tell you which side of your house is most advantageous, because your phone has a GPS and it has a compass. And so it will say, try find a window at this part of your house. Now remember, it's a Wi-Fi device. So
Mhm.
later on, you may hardwire it, but when you're setting it up, you can put the damn thing anywhere because it's a Wi-Fi device. And the way it works is it brings in the signal from the cell towers, just like your phone when it's not on Wi-Fi, brings in from the power or the transmission from the towers. And so you want to be by a window and one side of your house that's more advantageous
Hmm.
than another. And it will direct you to that on your phone, and then you can fine tune it. And you can do a speed check once it's connected, but also it'll usually either on the app or on it'll show you what your strength is.
Oh,
And
cool.
you can play with it. And believe it or not, once you set it somewhere, don't hesitate to try it out at 90 degrees at the same location, because the antennas might be a little directional.
Good
And
information. Good
to get
information.
really in the weeds, they actually make external antennas you can do for these things that you could place on your roof and things like that, and point them where the cell phone towers are. Now, there are particular, and I'll have to look up the one, but there are particular maps that show the cell phone tower locations and your carrier, because some carriers all use one tower, and then other places they use different ones. And you can get a directionalized antenna. It's a little costly, so I want to make sure it at least works well first and then go from there.
Okay.
And yeah, and a little higher and near a window seems to be beneficial, but
Okay.
it's not perfect. And it doesn't hurt to go to the local store of whoever it is, because they have a pretty good idea of the antennas around them. And if you look online, like I know, especially with T-Mobile, if you go onto their coverage map,
Mm-hmm.
the map actually reflects what real phones are showing for signal in that area. So you can trust that map for what it is, and you can drill down to, I mean, an amazing level and see how it is, because hills, other homes make a difference. And it's using people that own T-Mobile phones to gather that data. And I don't know about the others if they do that or not. It used to be where they kind of forecast where it was.
Yeah. One, if I may,
Yeah,
I
please.
know with my current internet provider, I get the 5G, well, they call it 5G,
Well,
and
5G is different on Wi-Fi than it is on cell phone, and it's too bad they're
correct,
named the same.
correct. Yeah, this is strictly Wi-Fi, but I've got like 3 bands of
Right.
access, if you will, and one is a guest network, and the other two. Is that similar with T-Mobile Home? Do they have
Yeah.
the
So great
my
question.
neighbor would be very interested because I let them use my guest network.
Yeah. So good question. And I hope you're making something for it because it's expensive. But anyway,
Well, no,
I just
I have to pay the same amount anyway, so
anyway.
they're
So
homeschooling.
so here's the deal. The guest network may be 5G or so 5G for cellular is the newest fastest thing,
Yeah.
but it's not so much in rural areas yet, but it's in suburban areas because the towers don't transmit as far, so they have to have more towers. But it's wicked fast. The latency is super low and more people can be on it. So it's a great thing. Now that's 5G cellular, okay? And that's what most of these devices use. And it would be slower if it was 4, but they actually have the old 4G band in there too as a fallback. So wireless, which would be from your Wi-Fi router. Now your Wi-Fi router could be inside your home internet devices over the air or your cable or whatever. But the router transmits primarily on 2 different frequencies, 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz.
Yeah.
2.4 is the older, 5 gigahertz is newer. Here's the deal. Just like the other 5G, if it's in your house and you want to go out in the garage, the 5G network, it's a higher frequency, so therefore it's more affected by interference.
Mm-hmm.
When I say interference, I mean distance or cabinetry and things like that. So 5G would be faster, but realistically, you're only as good as your weakest link, which the 2.4 gigahertz is probably plenty fast for whatever your internet speed is. But let's say you were transferring files from one computer to another and they're close enough, you would use the 5G because it's faster. So in other words, as long as you're 2.4 gigahertz, if you're doing 1 gigabit Ethernet or 1 gigabit internet from Comcast, yeah, you probably need to use the 5G. The 5G does not travel as far, is what it is.
Okay.
Just like the cellular, even though they're totally different. But what happens is 5G, the signals, the channels are narrower, so your neighbor having 5G is less likely to cause interference on your 5G. It's like driving your old AM radio going down I-5 and you're listening to a radio station and all of a sudden another radio station starts to step on top of it and you hear that static. That's because the radio stations aren't digital, they're bleeding over. Well, the narrower the channel, the less bleed over there is. So the 5G is good if you're close. And when you're farther away, the 2.4 gigahertz works better, but at high speeds, it's not as good. Consequently, many of your home devices, your Amazon devices, your Ring doorbells, things like that, a lot of times they're configured to just use 2.4 gigahertz.
Right.
And generally speaking, your one network, like mine says Ken's Wi-Fi network, it won't say anything. But my other one says Ken's Wi-Fi network 5G.
Yeah.
And that means it's that one. So generally you can select it. On the iPhone, it doesn't show up either one. It knows to try get the best one. But again, 2.4 if you need better coverage farther away. For instance, my Raccio sprinkler in my garage only goes on a 2.4, but it also is better because it travels farther.
Right. Okay.
Good
Well, thank you,
question on
Ken.
that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Barbara.
Yeah, can you explain what Wi-Fi calling is and how that works?
Sure.
When you would want to use it?
Yeah. So Wi-Fi calling, well, first, so what Wi-Fi calling does is, I don't know if any of you remember back in the day, you wouldn't get good cell reception at home, and the carrier would offer you a little box you could put at your house that was connected to the internet, and it created this little mini cell phone tower in your house, and you would connect to that, and then it would pipe your call over the internet. And that worked pretty well. But what they did is they came up with Wi-Fi calling ability on most all phones that have been produced in the last 10 years. And what that does is if you turn Wi-Fi calling on, it says, if I don't have really good cell tower reception, route my call through my Wi-Fi network. And you're essentially making an over the internet phone call. Now, first off, when you're traveling and you don't want to use your cell service, because if you're not on T-Mobile, your cell provider is going to charge you an arm and a leg for that. If you're on the Wi-Fi, they might give you a better rate for that phone call because you're not even using the cell towers of Deutsche Telekom in Germany or something like that. You're just using the internet Wi-Fi from the hotel you're at. But at home, it can be used to, if you get a weak cell signal because you have the foil backed roof or whatever. However, whatever kind of Wi-Fi or internet you have, you can put your phone calls through it. But here's a little caveat. And I have Wi-Fi calling on almost all the time. But there are times, and especially if you're on AT&T DSL, it's so slow and it uses what's called packets that may make that the conversation very choppy. And if you're using Wi-Fi calling and the person says, "Hey, I'm only hearing every other word," and you don't, and you only hear every other word of them, immediately go up to Control Center, come on down and turn off Wi-Fi, because the Wi-Fi calling is getting lost in the packets on the internet. Just a quick introduction. Data on the internet travels in these little thing called packets. And believe it or the reason for that is, it was explained to me one time in a video, it was perfect. Let's say you're merging onto a freeway and there was a truck in the slow lane that had 10 trailers hooked to it. It would be very hard to merge where that truck is because there's no room between those trailers because they're all hooked together. Well, that would be a long packet of data. But if there are 10 semis with one trailer each, there's room between each of those semis. So your car, which is a packet of data, can fit right in there and you can merge into the whole internet, and that data travels in packets. And what's really amazing about this whole thing is, we talked about IPs. Your address on the internet is where you're using, and consequently, every one of your devices also has what's called a MAC address, not Apple Mac. It's MAC address, and so if I have 6 devices at my house, if I'm using my iPad, if I'm requesting the Apple.com website, it needs to go to my iPad, not my Apple TV. And so each one of these little packets has an address that has your IP address, so it knows to come to your router. And then from the router, it knows to go to my iPad. Each of those packets has that address on it. And it's amazing that it works how it does. And that's Internet Protocol, and that's been there forever. And it's an amazing thing. But voice and video have to travel in packets. And that's why sometimes the voice gets interrupted a little bit, or also, especially video. That's why I encourage you, if you have Ethernet at home and you're doing video or Zoom calls, try to be on Ethernet as much as possible, because it's called packet loss. And you can get packets that just kind of don't get there fast enough.
So do you have to switch manually between Wi-Fi calling and cellular, or does it just automatically pick
So-
whichever is stronger?
My recommendation is leave Wi-Fi calling on at all times, and when it's in the phone, it will say, okay, if I've got bad Wi-Fi, I'll go to cellular. But I've had instances where in the call, I hear it okay, and it's not like you hear static. There's no static any longer, but it drops out. So I just pull my phone away. I go to Control Center in the upper right, swipe down, and I tap Wi-Fi and turn off Wi-Fi. My Wi-Fi calling is still on, but since I'm not connected to Wi-Fi for that little time, it's forcing it to go over the cell tower. And even though I might not have good cell coverage, it's still going to make a better call.
Ah, okay.
And to be honest, I've noticed it a little more with my T-Mobile home than I did with my cable internet.
Hmm.
And so, and I'm a big proponent of it. It's not enough that I would get away from my T-Mobile home. But in fact, and then what happens is when you do that on your phone will say, okay, we'll connect to Wi-Fi tomorrow morning. So it turns off your Wi-Fi for a while. You don't go physically turn it off, you just disable it there. And then the next time we'll do it. What I do after that call, yeah, if I notice, oh, my internet's not very fast, oh, my Wi-Fi's off. So I go to Control Center and then swipe down and then turn it back on.
Okay. Here's one more question.
And besides
quickly.
that, who makes phone calls anymore?
Yeah.
Just
A
kidding.
question about the control panel. I was going
Sure.
to a booth the other day and I looked for the theater mode setting and it looks like that no longer exists. Is there
On your
something new?
on your phone?
On the phone, yeah.
That's because it's on your watch.
Oh, okay. So you
So
said
the
it was
theater
watch.
mode setting is, and I don't think it's ever been on the phone.
Oh, really?
I could be wrong.
I thought it was. Okay.
Let me look. So anyway, on your watch, when you go to your settings on your watch, there's the mute, there's the walkie-talkie, and there's one that looks like two theater masks, and that's one that you can do. And you turn that on, it will silence your watch. But the best part is because our watches, when we pull them up to our face, go bright, or we look at them, they go bright. And if you're in this, it's in the middle of this real dramatic scene, and everybody's like concentrating, and all of a sudden your watch glows like this, people like look at you. So if you turn on the theater mask, what it will do is it will turn on the theater mode, which makes it, if you want to see your watch, you have to tap it to make it light up rather than just light up when you turn your wrist. And I think it even gives you the option. Do you want to do this until you leave or something? And then it senses you've gotten away from that theater and it'll turn back off.
I can't find it in settings on my watch.
So are you in your settings?
Yeah.
Not in settings. You need to go to Control Center.
Oh, control center.
So hit the oval button and you should see airplane mode, Wi-Fi.
Yep, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, by the way, that's how you find your phone if you don't know where you left it. Mary, did you have another question or was that already yours?
I do have a question. I'm
Okay, then
trying to
Bev.
think of how do I find out what networks I have? That
What
may be a
network?
Pardon?
Your own Wi-Fi network, you mean? Or
Yeah, because I thought I used to have two, one that I named them the same, but one for 2.4 and 1.1 for 5.
right?
How can I locate on my desktop
Well,
who that is?
who is your router from?
I've got an Eero.
Oh, you've got an Arrow.
Mm-hmm.
You can go in and manage it, but it should be that. But on your Apple devices, it may not show the difference.
Yeah.
Your
Okay.
Apple device is smart enough to say which one it should be on.
Okay. And then I think I have another one and I don't know what the password is.
Why did you name them? You don't need to on a Euro.
Oh, well, I had them named before. Oh,
I
that's
never named mine.
They're not named?
Works just perfectly.
Hmm.
Well, I've named mine, but the thing is that you would have to go into the settings in the Eero and you would want to name one of them 5G, but I wouldn't make any changes if it's working.
I'm
Because
not.
Right.
you could be knocking out, you wouldn't, oh, all of a sudden all this stuff doesn't work.
Yeah, no, I
And
wouldn't
the
change
beauty
it.
of having Eero, you guys, by the way, EERO, it's a router. So in other words, if she changed to T-Mobile Home or AT&T or something else, you just plug that into the modem and it you don't have to change any of your settings anywhere. It works. And I really encourage that. And then what this is the Eero is what's called mesh. So in other words, you have little satellite devices that are wirelessly connected to the main one, which is hooked next to your router. There are three things or four things or two things that are exactly the same, but you have the one hooked into your router, and then that gives you coverage into outer other areas. A little quick tip, and that's called a mesh system. And a little quick tip on that is if you need a connection in a bedroom that's the farthest away from where your current router is, don't go put the satellite in the far bedroom because it's so far it won't reach. You put it halfway in between, and then it takes the signal from the one satellite, puts it to that one, and then you're going to pick that signal up in that bedroom. Don't put it where it ultimately needs to be. Put it halfway distance between where you need it and where it existing is.
Actually, when you set it up, you use your phone and the Arrow app, and the Arrow app guides you to the best spots to place
Yes.
the.
Absolutely. And they're great. And those are called mesh networks. And the newer ones, the old ones, like Apple used to have a great one. You had an Airport Extreme base station, and then you had Airport Expresses.
Mhm.
And the old thing was, though, the Airport Express would cut the Wi-Fi in half because it was half transmitting and half receiving. The newest ones that are these mesh networks, there's one band that transmits and one that receives, so you get full bandwidth, and they've got better distance. Wi-Fi 7 has come out. Wi-Fi 6 is still pretty new. I wouldn't get anything older than a Wi-Fi 5E. 5E is as far back as you would want to go.
Were you talking about the new Apple? I heard they're doing new modem
No,
routers.
there's a rumor they might do something. I
Oh,
don't know. And I'll give you an idea on that. I saw that come up and I immediately said, you know what? And I may have mentioned this in the last one. I think I haven't read this anywhere, but to me, it ties into the new Apple Home device that they say they're going to do. And I pointed out that the new version of Wi-Fi has what's called Bluetooth. I'm sorry, the new Bluetooth is Bluetooth UW, ultra wide. And what happens with Bluetooth, for instance, on my car, which has Bluetooth, and it's got the new Bluetooth, if I walk up to the back of my car with my phone in my pocket, it senses I'm at the back of my car. In other words, this new Bluetooth can do directional stuff so much that if I stand there, it beeps 3 times and the trunk automatically opens. So what it is, it's directional. So if you think about a home device that's directional, you've either got your phone or your Apple Watch or even your AirPods on you, and Bluetooth. And again, I think Wi-Fi will be part of it because Wi-Fi can be directionalized and it triangulates like this. As you walk around your house, it will know what lights to turn on. It'll know what room you're in for a thermostat and things like that. So I really think that they're not just doing a new Wi-Fi router. I think they're going to do something that ties in to the entire home system. And what it does, instead of infrared or ultrasonic, it will use the wireless communication, Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, to determine where you are, and therefore it can do different things. It can move sound to where you are and things like that. I haven't read that anywhere. It's a wag. It's a wild ass guess on my account, but I think that's what we're looking for.
There's some scuttlebutt. It may make an appearance in the next version of the SE, the special edition iPhone, the real small one, just to vet the technology, and that's forthcoming probably in the next quarter.
Good.
Yeah, we'll see how
Yeah.
it fares out. The
No,
flush.
and I think, I mean, I hope it comes to be. So anyway, Bev, go ahead.
Two questions. One, Al said about 14 links, and when I clicked on one, it said potential security issue detected. Al Trivet sent you best Uber files with this extension may be harmful to your computer. Are you sure you want to download? So why is it, why are we getting
Which link was it?
well, one of the 14, all of them seem to. This was
Are they the ones I sent, Al? Hang on, let me click.
well, best Uber alternative.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Let me click on that. Ah, so you know what? It wasn't a link then, it was a web link. So yeah, I can vouch for all of those because I sent those to Al and we're going to go into those in a second. So
We
it's
have
because
15 minutes.
it said it needed to download. So Al, before you do the, well, shoot, I don't know if there's a way to. I'm going to go to those right now, by the way.
Yeah, just resend it to me or post in the link, and I'll.
Well, it's the way it did it, so unfortunately I can't. I was trying to share it from a web tab, but I'll do it at the end and you'll have it. I'll clear it up.
And then just briefly, I have the Eero mesh system in my house. So and I have the Sure West cable coming in. So if I was to get like the T-Mobile home plate in the window, I just plug it in and I'm not going to have to worry about download code or all the different password codes.
Oh, yeah, so my recommendation is you don't hook it to anything first. Just hook it up and use what they're doing, and it's going to be its own name, and use that just to test it out on your phone and your iPad and things like that. If it looks like it's working, go ahead and plug your router into it and use your network. But I would just make sure, just make it easy first, and it's going to have its own password and its own network
Okay,
name.
so it would be an independent system, and so I'd have two systems in the house.
Yeah, just for the first testing, because it's so much easier. And then say, wow, this looks pretty good. Go ahead and plug your Eero into it from what it's plugged into. Test it out. You may get an indication. It'll say something that you may have a double NAT, N-A-T, and that means you have two routers going, and that won't be much of it really won't be a problem. Okay? But test it out first without anything hooked to it, just so you can do, because the default password they have and all that works really easy.
Yeah, I've got combination of wire. Everything's hardwired plus the Wi-Fi, but okay.
Yeah. All righty. So I'm going to, because we finally have some weather, I want to just point out a few things in these first web things. So Mark Finan used to be KCRA. He's great to follow. He's on Facebook or on YouTube, and he twice daily does a morning and an evening thing, and he is just, I mean, he's so smart and just so good. And if you want to be a weather nerd, I mean, you can see how many of them I've been watching and stuff. It's just fantastic. And if you're on YouTube a lot, you can pay like $20 a month and you won't get most of the ads, and that kind of is nice, but that's up to you. Anyway, either way, they've got it free and got ads, and so he doesn't have ads within his stuff, it's YouTube ads. So anyway, I really encourage it. And the other thing is, Mark Finan is a wonderful photographer. I've seen some of his stuff. It's amazing. And he's doing this exposition, and this isn't, I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. It's up at a vineyard up in where the heck is it? Right here. David Gerard Vineyards. Anyway, he's got an exposition. It's got wine tasting and stuff like that. And he's going to be displaying stuff. He'll be selling stuff, but he's also going to be displaying stuff. So, oh, it's in Placerville. So, Anyway, I just, again, but I basically, you will be well informed on weather, and he basically goes through all the different things he uses to make his weather predictions. So I highly recommend that. Speaking of weather, it's an app, it's also a web page, and it's called Windy, WIND.com. And it's really cool. I used this when let's see what it's like down in Antarctica, because, oh, not too bad. So right through here, this is Drake Passage, and it's not too bad right now. But you can see here, oh, King Edward Point, getting a little bit of wind, but Windy is very, very good. And you can really, let's zoom in locally and see what it's like locally. There's Yosemite. I'll be going there shortly. So you can see, and this is wind direction. The color corresponds to the lower right corner to the speed of the wind. But you can see directional. So this is pretty interesting. You know, it's a little windier up towards Tahoe, storms coming through. Here is Highway 80, not so much. See down here, this is a little bit of a southerly flow, which is usually a clearing. So windy.com, they do have an app. Now, for travel, this is oss.weathershare.org. And I use this. This is a lifesaver. And I'm going to zoom in a bit. So this has, if you look up here, there's all kinds of different things you can have it show. You can have it forecast different weather, current weather, fire stuff, whatever you want. But I have it on road conditions most of the time. And if I look here, so here's Lake Tahoe. So here's Highway 80. And it will show me what's really cool. If you click this, this is a live version. So Caltrans has another website that does this too. Very good. But this is all in one. These are actually live, what those signs are transmitting at 11:38 a.m. now that it's 11:51 a.m. So the other thing is you've got live weather cameras. So I can see, oh yeah, it's only raining. It's not snow, but it looks like they have these set up. I'll bet you they're doing the chain check or something like that is why they have the cones all set up there. And this was as of 11:50. So like a minute ago. That's not early enough for you, sorry. And then they do show chain controls. What I do a lot of times is like to see at North Star. See, this tells me, oh man, it's not very good at North Star because, oh, come on, we're in large image. There we go. See, there's no snow there. This is the entrance off 267 to North Star. So that's not good. Anyway, it's a great thing. oss.weathershare.org. For weather, I subscribe to this, but this is a great thing called Open Snow. It's really good about showing winds and forecasts and things like that. You can do a subscription on it if you want. Actually, we'll say allow, and I can just do maps. And you can pick wherever you want, and it's going to do some really good forecasting. The other thing is, if you're going to go somewhere, they probably have webcams. I always check with Yosemite, so this tells me, yeah, it's a little moist, not really doing anything. Then you see here, it's fog, but you don't see snow in the trees. I do the same thing for the North Star ski area. I can see it's probably, I think it's raining up there, a little bit of snow at the top. But I also go to these fire cameras, and this is these are the ones they use for you can see all these little cameras dotted around Lake Tahoe here, and this happens to be this one camera right here pointing that direction. And These are live cameras in different places. Let's see. Where would someone know? Fallen Leaf Lake up at the lake. So if I click on that, that's fallen leaf. So at lake level, it's raining. All right. After weather, I want to talk briefly about travel. I've been planning a big trip coming up, and some of the resources are this. And again, you're going to get all these links afterwards. I'm going to make these in link form for Al. I sent it to him as a, got that weird thing. So I'll fix that, and I apologize.
They're coming
So,
up for me.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, they're mounting for me.
Oh,
The
they are?
yeah, the one that Bev was concerned about, the Uber one.
Was that the only one that was weird?
I mean,
When I click on them, I get it for like Axis Bald, California, Greater Tahoe Fire. That one gets the same message.
Well, if they're loading for you, Al, if you wouldn't mind, just you can copy and paste from your stuff into it, but don't do it now.
I mean, it just says the extension is risky. So
Yeah, but I mean, you're going to have to do that with each of them, but he'll just post the correct, the link itself is all it needs to be, because the links will be good. I tried to share this tab folder and I didn't know it would do that. So my fault, and it was a last minute thing. It totally my deal. Wasn't Al. I should have given it to him like yesterday. So anyway, Rome to Rio is something that's really, really great. So let's say I want to go from Sacramento, California, to, let's pick Denver, Colorado. So I'll pick Denver. And I'm going to click this and say see all options. Well, first of all, the ad pops up here in Expedia. You know, it's just, that's how they sell this website. So don't worry about that. But if we go back here, the cool thing with Rome to Rio, it shows me how to get there with different modes of travel. And I don't ever book through this. I use this just to find out. Like for instance, I was in Warsaw and I needed to get from the train station to my hotel. So I put it in here and it told me, yeah, if you use a taxi, it'll cost you this much. You can drive it, or here's the transit you can take. So in this case, I have good alternatives. Now, obviously in Europe, we have better train travel than we do here, but it's just really a cool way to see your choices. And so like here, bus, and then it shows you it's going to take approximately 30 hours. And what's interesting is it usually has some sort of price. So if you were to drive, it kind of gives you an idea on gas. Here's what the flights are pretty much, you know. So it's a great thing. And it's Rome, the number 2, Rio.com. And there is an iOS app for this. And again, I don't book through it, but we'll go back, and I'm going from, well, let's see, I did this when I did Ljubljana, Slovenia to Warsaw. And it says fly. Well, I took a train and it showed me the train. And I actually overnighted in Vienna. So, and if I did a bus, it'd be this, and you can see the price differences. And then there's actually even a night train. I decided not to do that. I took it in 2 days. But Rome to Rio is a wonderful thing, and you can find out a lot. I'm planning, the end of my trip is going to be in New Zealand, and we were looking at train travel versus renting a car and stuff like that. So the other huge thing I use is Google Flights. Google Flights is phenomenal. You can put in I can put in up to 7 departures. So what I would do in this case, I would do SMF, and then I put a comma, SFO and a comma, LAX, comma, and Seattle, comma, and SFO PDX, I usually do, Portland, and I do OAK. And what's interesting, when you put Oakland in, it says Well, you already have San Francisco. So if I do this, it checks both Oakland and San Francisco because they're renaming the Oakland airport San Francisco something, which is really kind of funny. So anyway, I'm going to check that. And then I'm going to fly. Let's see, we're starting in London. So in London, there's a bunch of London airports. So instead of picking one of the airport, I could if I wanted, like that's Heathrow. If I click the name London, it's going to check all of those airports. I'm going to do a one-way trip. And then I go here and I do my departure. And if I go through here, it shows me the approximate prices on this one. I'll just pick April 17th, for instance. And then I hit done. And now I hit search. So what it's doing, it's checking all of these airports that I did and all the London airports. It's going to give you results both by trip. It's going to figure out what the best flight is, not the cheapest, but the best. So in this case, it says, well, for 433, well, yeah, that's $40 difference. Instead of a 14-hour flight, it's a $10 flight or 10-hour flight. And you can choose what you want. But what's really cool, if I hit date grid, I can go here and it says, oh, well, okay. Oh, if I go on Monday instead, it's only 333, but don't go on this Monday because it's 351. So, and then if a lot of times when I fly overseas, I'll go and see what business is and how much it is to business. So realistically, it's 2.5 times more for business. And there's only these non-stops. So you can also do things, if you go back to economy, you can say, you know what? I only want nonstop or one stop or fewer. You can look at all kinds of different things and you can limit it to certain airlines or certain airline alliances and do a search with that. So it's flights or google.com/flights. If you like train travel, I won't go into it too much, but this is killer. It's called the man in seat 61. So it's called seat 61. Here's an example that I showed you earlier. I'm going to go from Ljubljana. Oh, I don't think it's there. So I'll go, nope, I'll go from Slovenia. And then from Slovenia, it gives me some choices. Actually, I'm going to go do a different one because I'm going to say from, let's say, a city. Well, let's do Hungary. And then here's some other ones. So usually it'll give you and have you pull down where you want to go. But here it just does things like London to Budapest. So you click that and it gives you all these choices. And all of these are linked to the routes. And they even do different things like say, oh, yeah, if you take this one, it's got just snacks. Or if you take this one, it's got full meals and stuff. It is a wonderful resource for travel. This was the one that Lincoln was talking about. This was an old thing. I use Uber in most countries and at least check it to compare it to taxis. Some countries have other stuff than Uber. Some countries don't do Uber at all. Lyft is pretty much a US only thing. How to sleep better on a plane. Anyway, that wasn't it. This is really cool. So I started using this and I showed this to some of my guides on the last trip. So you can put in here the cost of anywhere you are and compare it to anywhere else. So in fact, here's the cost of living in Turkey in US dollars versus the Turkish lira. And I can say here, compare it with, let's say Denver, for instance, Denver, Colorado. So it compares everything in dollars to what it costs in, for instance, Turkey or Istanbul. And it's called Numbeo. And you pick wherever you want. It's really, really, really cool. Now, Al, you posted on, oh, this wasn't it. Excuse me. So the other thing is when you fly, whether you go first class or business class or economy, there are three great things to show you what the seats are like. And believe me, you know, when you get a seat, you want to make sure you have a pretty good map. Find out what seat you want to sit in, if the exit row is available, things like that. So the first one I go to is Seat Guru, and then there's Seat Maestro, and this other one, Hola. And Al, I don't know if you read the thing I sent to you.
Yeah.
Al asked about using when you travel, using your cell phone and using eSIM. On this last trip, I started using one that's called Hola Fly. And let's see, holafly.com. And what it is, I searched it, and it basically it's an eSIM, because most every iPhone since the 14 can do an eSIM. So you sign up when I'm in it, even though I use T-Mobile to travel, it sometimes isn't real fast. And so because they're giving it to you for free in more than 215 countries, and your text is free and your phone calls are 25 cents, but if I want to do it, I will add a SIM card for the area I'm in, and you get super fast internet. And like you can also, instead of, and my iPad mini uses T-Mobile, I have cellular, but rather than buy an eSIM for my iPad, I just tether it to my iPhone. So you always want to find a SIM that allows you to tether if you want to use your iPad too when you're traveling. So, I sold this as Safari. We had some great discussions, and I apologize. We've run out of time, but remember, I did Safari during the meeting. Just a week?
Actually, we advertised it as preview.
Oh, you're kidding.
No.
Oh, man. Ah.
Hey, that's okay.
Hey, it's okay. It's all good. I
Very
love it.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, preview is really good. And now I have something for next time. I thought it was a follow-up on Safari, but you know, I think the big thing was tell me feedback, you guys. Was the information useful on what we discussed? I mean, don't
Yes.
patronize me. I mean,
No,
Yes.
today was all interesting, you know, just given the interest that everybody in the questions, in my opinion, but let's hear.
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah,
Very
okay.
helpful. Very helpful.
very
Well,
good.
good. That means I'll do preview next time.
Let's put
You
it
know,
this way:
preview is a
nobody.
Swiss Army knife, you know, and it does so many things and so many nuances to it. It's always valuable, and sometimes we need a refresh anyway, so we can remember some of the features we might not use very frequently. Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's all good.
cool.
Well,
All
and we
right.
had-
And of course, as always, I talk too fast, so there is the recording, and go from there. And any questions before I close? And if somebody wants to hang on and have any other questions, feel free. And otherwise, we'll see the board and whoever else wants to join at 1 o'clock. Correct?
Great.
Correct.
and welcome to the folks who haven't been here before.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you. Everybody had really good questions too. And Charles, that wasn't on you. I just wanted to stress how important getting off Yahoo is. So,
Hey, I haven't had a lecture like that in a while, so
well,
thank you.
it wasn't. And I apologize because it wasn't. You brought it up, but that was for everybody. Believe me, as Bob said, there's a lot of people still on sbcglobal.net, and it just. I'm the one that has to deal with that, and it's so bad that it. And frankly, you know, spending 5 hours with a client. Luckily, they're good friends. Or can you imagine that at $100 an hour? So
Well, you got my attention.
good. Well,
You,
I'm for that. I'm glad. But again, it was not towards you. You know, and you and I have a great relationship. So or at least I think we do. So
Well, you did.
yeah, I did until now.
In in the sports world, that's called coaching them hard.
There you go. Oh yeah, when I was in high school football, when the coach came up behind me and he would right above my belt would squeeze really hard on my back there. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that got my attention. Not that I ever did anything wrong.
Of course not.
All right, we got a question from Bev. Oh, yeah, go ahead and we'll leave the recording going. So
Yeah, well, you mentioned about a website on trains. Was that for more for international, or did
I don't know. I think it might cover US too, but I used it originally for Peru. Because I wanted to get off on the train partway along the Inca Trail is where I first found it. But just use it. Seat 61, seat61.com, the number 61, and you can see. But it probably does, but I don't know for a fact.
So SEAT
Correct. And the
61,
number
61.
61.com.
Okay.
Randy, go ahead.
Yeah, that one I downloaded, it did seem to be more international, but the other one downloaded so many, I forget, does have train when you roam to
Rome to Rio has trains. Oh,
yes,
and
yes.
I didn't mention, so Bev, this would help too. Let me pull up, I'll share my screen because this is amazing. So again, we love to hate Google. So let me do, I go to maps.google.com. Okay. So I'm going to go to, let's do my earlier one. I'm going to go to Denver, let's say. And if I click Denver, and now I go down here and click directions. Well, first off, let's say I'm in Denver and I want to see how much hotels are. So I go up here with those restaurants, there's hotels, or I can type hotel over here, hotel, or you could do lodging, but hotels do the same thing. So if I say hotels, it's in this area. But let's say I want to be by, well, the airport's way out of town, but let's say I want to be by the Origin Hotel. Well, let's just pick this area. So if I zoom in to this area, let's say, you'll notice there's some red dots. So now I go up here and I say, search this area. It only searches within the area I've defined. Oh, and the reason these dots may be here is these may be, yeah, see, there's are smaller ones with not information. So I'm going to be going, let's say on May 14th, I just do to the 15th. And now on that time, it's showing me hotels that are available in that area. So there's not a lot. So let's move the map. Oh, here's a bunch. And then I could zoom in a little more. And now when I hover over them, it's showing me how many stars they are, what their rating is, and how much it is during the dates I put in. Okay. Super useful tool. So for instance, with train travel or with air travel, if I'm going to be an intermediate city, I look for hotels. The airport is, it always seems like it's more at the airport, but it's usually not because it's so competitive. And the other thing, it's ironic. Look at this. This looks like it's the train station. So on that seat 61, when I stopped in Vienna for my overnight from Slovenia to Warsaw, he said on the thing, now there's 3 hotels right by the station. This one hotel I've stayed in, it's great, and it's 100 yards from the train station. I booked that hotel. It was fantastic. It was a little drizzly, but I had just a super short walk to the hotel. That way I didn't have to leave my bag at the train station, and it was fantastic. So that's using Google Maps, but let's take this a little further. So I'm going to go back to my Denver, and now I'm going to go down here and click on directions. I'm going to go from Sacramento to Denver. Well, the default is by car, But if I click on transit, I now will get train travel. And look at this. And to me, this was so useful. This year and a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, when I went to Switzerland, when I click options, especially in Europe, if I'm going to do train travel, first of all, if I want to restrict it to train, I try to do as little, that will do less buses, okay? But I can say do fewer transfers. So this will figure a route that has fewer transfers, or I want less walking, in other words, on both ends. But since I'm doing city to city, I don't know exactly where it is. But if you delineated a specific address, it would do that. But the other thing is, again, best route, that's what they determine is the best route. And I can try restrict it to train as much as possible. So there's using only a train, the California Zephyr, which is pretty cool. Shows you the price, and then it shows you where you've got to make connections here and how Summit Express and things like that. So Rome to Rio is good for finding out what kind of transport you want to use. Google Maps is great for either what's driving like, and here you have options in on your car, or train, or it would take there's no way. Oh yeah, 409 hours to get to Denver. I don't think I'm walking that. By bicycle, or if you hit the plane, it will eventually take you to the Google Flights app. So did that answer it for you, Randy?
Yes, love it. And I am planning sometime in the future, Sacramento to Chicago. But the people I've talked to about that said, "Oh my goodness, Randy, if you're going to Chicago, you got to stay at least 3 days. There's so much to see, and then take the train back or fly back." So
Yeah, well, that's and the thing is, so what you're gonna well, let's do Sacramento, Chicago.
it's the Zephyr 51 hours,
Yep.
and I want a roomette.
Oh, the only way to go, Randy.
Yeah.
That's a long trip. I've done it
Oh,
to
wow.
Chicago. Yeah.
Barry,
So
we'll
here,
talk
Randy,
later.
you
We
you
have to anyway.
you choose the northern route,
Yeah.
and so you click on that. Oh wait, that did it. But it will oh, here it is down here. You can pick
The Zephyr.
which one you're doing, and this shows you the time difference, and then see there's a Greyhound involved, and you don't want that.
No,
Then if you click details,
that's the one. Yeah.
there it is. And by the way, I don't think for Amtrak, but like when you get to Chicago, you have the metro and all that stuff. And I use this in Europe. So if you're using local transit, the Apple Map allows you on most transits to buy the fare right in the app using Apple Pay.
Wow.
And then you simply just hold it up or do a barcode with it when you're there. And it really, especially in Europe with the exchange rate and everything else, it makes it really, really good.
And Randy, beware, the trains have no Wi-Fi. And even the stations, I thought Denver would have Wi-Fi in the station.
When did you go, Mary?
I've gone, gosh, well, with over the
Most
last,
recent.
I'm just trying to think. About 7 years ago, I came back from New York.
I
to
would be
Sac-
willing to bet that they have Wi-Fi and that was 7 years ago, Mary.
I know, but I went from here to Portland at Thanksgiving and they don't have Wi-Fi.
Okay.
So they
Well,
still don't.
hopefully they'll be rolling out Starlink.
Let's just say Ken and Mary, I'll fly back.
Mhm, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and that's what you should look at, Randy, too, is
Yeah.
think about whether you want to go or come back, because I think the routes may differ timing wise and stuff. So
Sure.
look at them both and don't be locked in and say, oh, I'm going on the train and coming back on the flight.
True.
There may be scheduling things that
Oh,
work better going the other way.
Actually, because I've heard, and Mary, maybe you've been there, the Union Station there in Chicago is such a spectacular waiting room that you get
Yes,
it free
with
when
the
you do the
roomette.
roomette. That
Yes, it
I think
is.
I'd want to go back, fly to Chicago, then come back on the train so I get to see that.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
wait,
can take a shower there.
that'd be nice. But I'd probably a few days hotel. So.
Anyway, that is.
Cool.
Thank you. And Ken, I was just going to mention Flighty is a great app for airline. I've got a little trip, Alaska in August.
With a Y?
FLI, yeah, that's the first one. FL Flighty. Yeah, I actually pay for it. They give me cancellations and flight updates before the airline does. Can't
Okay, well, let
recommend
me
it
give
enough.
you another one
Oh,
that's really good. So, and this gives you gate changes and stuff. Yeah, that's very good. If I'm
What
going to
is that
pickups,
one? Live what?
Flighty with a Y. It's you can see on the screen here. Flighty, but Flight Aware is very good for tracking flights and it does overhead and things like that. But see, this is good because it's going to give you the gates and everything. How much is it, Randy?
it's nominal. Let me see under subscriptions.
Well, you won't be able to see it. I'll look up mine and see. Let me look
Okay.
here.
But well worth it. My goodness, it's helped so much. Elaine and I went to Nova Scotia, and there was some things, or Newark, whatever. There were some flight changes, and just came in.
Yeah, because there's one called Gate Guru that will help you with your gates if you need to too. Flighty. Oh, I have it,
Oh,
but I don't
good.
think I'm paying.
They may have a free version or whatever, but
Well, let me look.
sure.
So
Oh, I think I have.
lifetime is 249. The Pro Family is 449. Week to week is 399. But I think I only have the free one. Pro for 1 week is 399, or a single flight's
I think I've got
399.
an annual, but where do
A
I?
month is 599. Annual is they have a flexible monthly family plan. That's weird.
Oh,
1 week,
friends.
1 month, 599. I don't. Oh, annual, 89.99. That's a family plan though.
Yeah, I got
Oh,
it.
47.99
That's
per.
more like it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
47.99, $5 a month. I mean, that's yeah,
it really works well.
or actually $4 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good
Oh,
tool.
yeah, Flighty Pro member, the
The
PRO.
first, oh, here's pricing right here. The first time that you get bumped off a flight and you have to be the first one to book a new flight, that's it. Oh, here's the what you get for free versus
The member Pro I have.
so unlimited flights, live pilot grade data. Yeah, see to get the well, it's weird. They're grayed out check marks. So really you have to do the
The
pro
Pro.
to get because gate alerts are what
Yeah.
is a big deal.
So does it say Pro?
Yeah, it says Flighty Pro, which is starting at $399 a week or a month if you buy it annually,
So yeah, I got the annual.
or $249 for lifetime. So I guess that's really the bet against how long you're going to live.
Yeah, mine renews.
I should do that because I'll live longer because I want to have gotten more for my money.
Absolutely. Mine renews on early May of this year.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks for bringing that up, Randy. I do appreciate it. You may have mentioned it before and I downloaded it then, I
Yeah.
think. Seems to seems to be in my memory that way.
It will see you in half
We'll see
hour.
you guys in about a half hour. Same link as this was.
Great.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Birdie. It was a great crab feed. Oh, she just left. Pete, thank you. Take care.